are storms, and then there are impossibilities. The Imperial sensor officer on Lothal's orbital station had tracked atmospheric disturbances for 15 years, dust storms that could strip paint from starfighters, electromagnetic pulses from solar flares, even the occasional meteor shower that made skip entry burns exciting. But the readings flooding his console now defied every meteorological model in the Empire's databases. Lightning discharges measuring in the terawatt range, wind velocities that should have torn the planet's atmosphere apart, and at the center of it all, a single point source moving at terminal velocity toward the surface, radiating energy signatures that registered as neither technology nor natural phenomenon. Sir, we have an unidentified object entering Lothal's atmosphere, he reported to the station commander, his voice tight with professional concern masking genuine fear. Energy output it's off the scale. I think we should scramble TIE squadrons and... The object hit Lothal's grasslands with the force of a tactical warhead. The explosion of displaced Earth and crackling lightning could be seen from orbit. A mushroom cloud of dust and electrical discharge that painted the plains in brilliant blue-white illumination. Thunder rolled across hundreds of kilometers, shattering windows in capital city and sending wildlife fleeing in primal terror. Imperial patrols across 3 sectors reported instruments going haywire, comlinks filled with static, and droids temporarily shutting down from electromagnetic interference. At the center of the crater, Thor Odinson pushed himself to his feet. The Asgardian prince was disoriented but unharmed. His divine constitution had absorbed an impact that would have liquefied any mortal being. Mjolnir rested in his right hand, still humming with residual energy from the dimensional breach that had torn him from his universe mid-battle. He'd been fighting alongside the Avengers against a Kree armada near the Bifrost, when reality itself had fractured, a cascading failure in space-time that sent him tumbling through a void of colors and sensations his warrior's mind couldn't process. And then he'd arrived here. Thor surveyed his surroundings with eyes that had witnessed the 9 realms and beyond. The landscape was alien, golden grasslands stretching to distant horizons, strange towers rising in the distance, and overhead. Overhead, he saw vessels. Not Asgardian ships or Midgardian craft, but sleek gray warships that hung in the atmosphere like predatory birds, their angular designs suggesting military function over aesthetic beauty. Heimdall, Thor called out, raising Mjolnir toward the sky. Heimdall, I require the Bifrost. Nothing. The connection to Asgard, that constant awareness of the Rainbow Bridge's potential, the sense that home was merely a summons away, remained frustratingly silent. Either he was too far from the 9 realms for Heimdall's all-seeing gaze to find him, or something about this realm interfered with Asgardian magic in ways Thor didn't yet understand. Before he could contemplate his situation further, new vessels appeared, smaller than the gray ships overhead, but moving with obvious hostile intent. They were angular craft with distinctive twin-panel wings, screaming through the atmosphere toward his position. Thor counted 12 of them, their weapons already glowing with stored energy. TIE fighters. Not that Thor knew the designation, he only recognized the universal language of approaching enemies. I know not what realm this is, Thor announced to the empty air, his voice carrying across the crater with divine resonance. But I am Thor Odinson, Prince of Asgard, son of Odin, and I mean no harm to this world. I seek only passage home. The TIE fighters opened fire, blaster bolts, concentrated packets of energy that could punch through durasteel armor, converged on Thor's position in a killing pattern that had incinerated countless rebel soldiers. The God of Thunder watched the green energy beams approach, and in the split second before they struck, he made a calculation born from thousands of years of combat experience. These were warning shots meant to kill. Thor spun Mjolnir in a defensive pattern, the Uru hammer moving faster than human eyes could track. Each blaster bolt that came within range of the spinning weapon was deflected, not absorbed or destroyed, but simply swatted aside like annoying insects. The redirected energy carved furrows in the grasslands, ignited small fires, and in one case struck a TIE fighter that had flown too close to its own attack vector. The fighter exploded in a satisfying fireball, proving that whatever these vessels were made of, they couldn't withstand their own weaponry turned against them. "I said I mean no harm," Thor shouted, frustration creeping into his voice. "But if you insist on pressing this attack, I will defend myself." The TIE squadron leader, a career officer who had served the Empire for a decade without questioning orders, saw his wingman vaporized by their own deflected fire and made a command decision. This wasn't a rebel insurgent or even a rogue force wielder. This was something else entirely, something that could swat aside military-grade weapons like a man brushing away flies. "All units switch to ion cannons," he ordered. "Target for capture, not kill. Command will want this one alive." The TIE fighters adjusted their approach, and now blue crackling bolts replaced the green blaster fire. Ion weapons, designed to disable electronics and stun organic targets through electrical overload. Against droids and shielded vessels, they were invaluable. Against the God of Thunder, they were a catastrophic miscalculation. Thor felt the electrical energy approaching and laughed. Actually laughed, with genuine amusement. "You attack me with lightning, I am lightning." He raised Mjolnir toward the sky, and the storm that had accompanied his arrival, which had been dissipating, suddenly roared back to life with redoubled fury. The clouds above Lothal's grasslands turned black as pitch, swirling in a vortex that made the planet's natural weather patterns look like gentle breezes. Lightning, true lightning, not the pale imitation of ion cannons, began arcing between clouds, each bolt carrying enough power to illuminate entire city blocks. Thor brought Mjolnir down, and the sky answered. A dozen lightning bolts struck simultaneously, each one targeting a TIE fighter with supernatural precision. The Imperial pilots barely had time to scream before their craft were engulfed in electrical fury that overloaded every system, fused every circuit, and sent them spinning toward the ground in 12 separate funeral pyres. The orbital station watched in horror as an entire squadron was eliminated in seconds by what appeared to be a localized force storm of unprecedented magnitude. The sensor officer's hands trembled as he realized the energy readings he'd detected earlier hadn't been the maximum, they'd been the baseline. Whatever had crashed on Lothal could generate power that rivaled capital ship weapons, and it had just demonstrated perfect control over that power. "Get me the Inquisitorius," the station commander ordered, his voice hollow. "And alert Lord Vader. We have a situation." On the surface, Thor stood amid the smoking wreckage of Imperial fighters, his expression troubled. He had killed in self-defense, as was his right as a warrior, but these had been soldiers following orders, not true villains deserving death. On Asgard, such conflicts were typically resolved through formal challenge or diplomatic negotiation, not immediate lethal assault. What manner of realm was this, where warriors attacked first, without even attempting parley? Thor looked toward the distant city, where more of those gray ships were beginning to move in his direction. He could flee, take to the air, and find somewhere to gather information before making his next move. Or he could stand his ground and demand answers from whoever commanded these forces. Thor Odinson, Prince of Asgard, had never been one to flee from a fight. He planted Mjolnir before him and waited for the next wave, lightning crackling around his form in anticipation. Somewhere in this strange realm, there had to be someone with answers, someone who could explain where he was, how he'd arrived, and most importantly, how he could return home. But first, he would need to convince these people to stop trying to kill him. In the distance, a massive star destroyer began descending through Lothal's atmosphere, an operation normally reserved for planetary invasion or the presence of extremely high-value targets. Aboard that vessel, an Inquisitor known as the Seventh Sister reviewed the footage of Thor's lightning display, her force-sensitive awareness tingling with unease. This was no Jedi. This was no Force wielder at all. This was something entirely other, something that wielded power through means she couldn't sense or predict. The dark side whispered warnings in her mind, ancient, primal fears about beings who operated outside the natural order. She smiled behind her mask. The Emperor rewarded those who brought him interesting prizes, and this warrior, who commanded storms without touching the Force, would be very interesting indeed. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The hunt for the God of Thunder had begun, and neither the Empire nor Thor himself yet understood how this encounter would reshape the galaxy's fate. The Inquisitor's transport touched down 3 kilometers from Thor's position, far enough to avoid immediate engagement, but close enough to observe. The Seventh Sister emerged flanked by a full platoon of stormtroopers, their white armor gleaming in the afternoon sun that was just beginning to pierce through the dissipating storm clouds. She moved with the predatory grace common to all Inquisitors, former Jedi who had been broken and remade into the Empire's hunting dogs, their connection to the Force twisted toward service of the dark side. Through that corrupted connection, she reached out toward the figure standing in the crater, trying to sense his intentions, his fears, his weaknesses. The Force flowed around him easily enough. He was no void in the energy field, like the Yuuzhan Vong of ancient legends. But there was something else there too, something that her Force senses couldn't quite grasp. A different kind of power, older perhaps, divine in a way that made her uncomfortable. "Advance slowly," she ordered the stormtroopers, weapons ready but not raised. "Let's see if we can communicate before we have to subdue it." "It, ma'am?" The squad leader's voice crackled through his helmet speakers. "Until we know what it is, soldier, it's not a him." She ignited her double-bladed lightsaber, a spinning weapon of red plasma that hummed with barely contained violence. "Now move." Thor watched the formation approach with interest. These soldiers wore armor not unlike what he'd seen on various alien species across the 9 realms. Protective gear designed for warfare, but the woman at their head, the one with the spinning red blade. Now she was different. He could feel something emanating from her, an energy not unlike magic, but somehow darker, more corrupted. It reminded him of the worst sorcerers he'd encountered in his youth, those who drew power from suffering rather than discipline. "Hold!" Thor commanded when they reached the crater's edge. his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded armies. "I will speak with your leader. Are you she?" The seventh sister tilted her head, surprised that the being spoke Basic, the galactic common tongue. Her intelligence briefing had suggested the unknown contact might be completely alien, perhaps not even capable of communication. But here it stood, this golden-haired warrior with his archaic armor and primitive weapons, speaking as though he had every right to make demands of the Empire. "I represent the Galactic Empire," she replied, her voice modulated through her mask to sound more mechanical, less human. "You have violated Imperial airspace, destroyed Imperial property, and killed Imperial personnel. By law, you are subject to immediate arrest and interrogation. Surrender your weapon and submit to custody." Thor's grip on Mjolnir tightened. "I am Thor of Asgard. I come not as invader, but as one displaced by forces beyond my control. I destroyed your vessels only after they attacked me without provocation. Where I come from, such aggression is met with appropriate response." He paused, considering his next words carefully. "But I am willing to discuss terms. I seek information about this realm and a means to return to my own. Provide me this, and I will depart peacefully." "You misunderstand your situation," the seventh sister said, beginning to circle along the crater's rim. The stormtroopers adjusted their positions to maintain firing solutions, though none seemed eager to actually pull their triggers after seeing what had happened to the TIE squadron. "You don't make demands of the Empire. You don't negotiate terms. You submit or you are eliminated. Those are your only options. Then you have chosen poorly." Thor raised Mjolnir, and despite the afternoon sun now shining clearly, thunder rumbled overhead. "I have faced frost giants and fire demons, dark elves and beings of pure malice. I have fought beside Earth's mightiest heroes and stood against cosmic threats that would shatter your understanding. I do not fear your empire, and I will not submit to threats." The seventh sister struck without warning, a force-enhanced leap that carried her across the crater in a single bound, her lightsaber spinning toward Thor's neck in a decapitation strike that had killed dozens of Jedi survivors. It was a killing blow delivered with dark side speed and precision, meant to end the confrontation before her opponent could react. Thor's hand shot out and caught the lightsaber blade. The seventh sister's momentum carried her forward, but her weapon stopped as if it had struck a durasteel wall. Thor held the spinning plasma blade in his bare palm, the energy that should have severed his hand instead crackling harmlessly against Asgardian flesh that had been forged in divine fires and tempered across millennia. His skin didn't even redden. "An interesting weapon," Thor observed, his blue eyes studying the lightsaber with genuine curiosity. "Contained plasma, if I'm not mistaken. Elegant design. But it seems you've forgotten a warrior's first lesson. Never assume your enemy is helpless simply because they appear so." The seventh sister tried to pull her lightsaber free, augmenting her strength with the Force. Thor's grip didn't budge. She released the weapon and backflipped away, her mind racing. Lightsabers cut through nearly everything. Blast doors, battle droids, Beskar if given enough time. They were pure cutting power, capable of severing limbs and blocking blaster bolts. Nothing should be able to simply grab one. "Open fire!" she screamed to the stormtroopers. The platoon hesitated for exactly 1 second, long enough to process an order that seemed suicidal given what they'd witnessed. And then training overrode survival instinct. 40 stormtroopers opened fire simultaneously, their E-11 blaster rifles filling the air with emerald death. Thor released the lightsaber and spun Mjolnir in a defensive pattern. But this time, he didn't merely deflect the incoming fire. He advanced through it, the hammer moving in arcs and circles that created a shield of kinetic force. Blaster bolts struck the spinning Uru and scattered in every direction except toward Thor himself. He walked forward like a man strolling through rain, completely unbothered by the sustained fire that should have reduced him to ash. "I tire of this," Thor announced. He slammed Mjolnir into the ground. The shock wave rippled outward in a perfect circle, a wave of kinetic force mixed with lightning that hit the stormtroopers like a physical wall. 40 soldiers were lifted off their feet and thrown backward, their armor protecting them from the worst of the impact, but leaving them stunned and scattered across the grasslands. Not dead. Thor had pulled his strike, but decisively removed from the fight. The seventh sister caught herself with the force before being thrown, hovering a meter off the ground as the shock wave passed beneath her. She landed in a combat crouch, her mind frantically reassessing. This being wasn't just strong or resistant to energy weapons. He possessed power that operated outside the Force entirely, which meant her training as an Inquisitor. All those techniques for sensing danger, predicting attacks, manipulating opponents was useless. She was facing an opponent she couldn't read, couldn't predict, and apparently couldn't harm. "You serve a master who rules through fear," Thor said, approaching her slowly. "I can sense it in you, the darkness, the pain you carry, the corruption of whatever noble purpose you once served. There is still time to turn back from this path. I have seen warriors redeemed from far darker falls than yours." The words struck deeper than any weapon. The seventh sister felt something crack in her carefully constructed emotional armor, a memory of who she'd been before the Inquisitorius, before Order 66, before everything she'd believed in had been torn away. For just a moment, she wanted to believe this golden warrior who spoke of redemption with such absolute conviction. Then her training reasserted itself. Emotion was weakness. Hope was a lie. The dark side was power, and power was all that mattered. "You know nothing about me," she hissed, calling her lightsaber back to her hand with the Force. "Nothing about what I've endured or what I've become. The Empire is order. The Empire is strength. Everything else is chaos, waiting to consume the weak." "Then your Empire has taught you poorly." Thor stopped 10 meters away, close enough to strike, but maintaining a respectful warrior's distance. "True strength lies not in domination, but in protection, not in fear, but in inspiration. Your master, this emperor, he has taken your power and bent it toward tyranny. That is not strength, that is parasitism." The seventh sister prepared to attack again, but a new voice cut through the tension, a voice that made her blood freeze and her dark side training scream warnings of overwhelming danger. "Interesting philosophy, stranger. Perhaps you would care to share it with me directly." The air itself seemed to grow heavy as Darth Vader descended from his shuttle, his black cape billowing despite the still air, his mechanical breathing echoing across the battlefield like the rhythm of an approaching execution. He'd been en route to Lothal for an unrelated inspection when the reports had reached him, an unknown entity displaying power that operated outside the Force, destroying Imperial assets with contemptuous ease. Vader's interest had been immediate and absolute. Behind his mask, Vader's Force senses probed the golden warrior before him. Like the seventh sister, he found something confusing. The man was present in the Force, but he was also something else. something that existed adjacent to the Force rather than within it. It was as if Vader was looking at two different beings occupying the same space. One, a living creature connected to the cosmic energy field. The other, something divine that transcended such mundane connections. Thor studied the new arrival with equal interest. This one was different from the woman, more powerful, more dangerous, more deeply steeped in that dark energy. And there was something familiar about him, something that resonated with Thor's experience. Pain. This warrior carried terrible pain, both physical and spiritual, and had transformed that agony into weapon and armor. "You are their champion," Thor stated. It wasn't a question. "I am Lord Vader," the Sith Lord replied, his voice mechanically modulated but carrying undeniable authority. "Dark Lord of the Sith, Supreme Commander of the Imperial forces and the Emperor's right hand. You have entered Imperial space, destroyed Imperial property, and demonstrated abilities that warrant immediate investigation. You will accompany me to the nearest detention facility for processing. I am Thor, son of Odin, Prince of Asgard and protector of the 9 realms. I bow to no tyrant, serve no oppressor, and will not be taken prisoner by warriors who attack without honor." Thor raised Mjolnir, lightning beginning to arc around his body. "But if you seek to test your strength against mine, Lord Vader, I will grant you that warrior's courtesy. Face me in single combat, and let our battle determine whether I am prisoner or free man." Vader's hand moved to his lightsaber. In his long service to the Empire, few beings had ever challenged him directly. Fewer still had survived the experience. But something about this Thor spoke to the part of Anakin Skywalker that still existed beneath the armor and pain, the part that had once been a Jedi Knight, a hero, someone who believed in honor and noble combat. The lightsaber ignited, its crimson blade humming with dark side energy. "Very well," Vader said. "Let us see if your strength matches your arrogance." The seventh sister and her stormtroopers retreated to a safe distance, sensing that what was about to occur was beyond their ability to effect. 2 warriors, one a god from another realm, the other a fallen Jedi reborn as a Dark Lord, stood facing each other on the grasslands of Lothal. Thunder rumbled overhead as lightning began to dance around Thor's form. The dark side of the Force coiled around Vader like a living shadow, responding to his will. And then they struck. The clash of Mjolnir against Vader's lightsaber produced a sound Lothal had never heard. A crystalline ring of Uru metal meeting contained plasma, amplified by force and divine power, until it resonated across kilometers. The shock wave from their initial impact flattened grass in a perfect circle, sent stormtroopers stumbling even at their distant observation point, and cracked the viewport of a nearby Imperial shuttle. Vader pressed forward with mechanical precision, his lightsaber weaving through gem-so forms that had been perfected across decades of combat. Each strike was calculated to exploit openings, test defenses, and ultimately break through to deliver killing blows. His augmented strength, both cybernetic and force-enhanced, drove attacks that could cleave through blast doors and shatter defensive positions. Thor met each strike with Mjolnir, the hammer moving in defensive patterns that were simultaneously crude and devastatingly effective. Where Vader employed elegant technique honed through Jedi training and Sith refinement, Thor fought with the raw experience of someone who had battled for over 1,000 years. His style was less art and more practical violence, blocks that could shatter bones, counters that generated enough force to crater stone. movements that carried the weight of divine power behind them. "You fight well," Thor acknowledged, deflecting a thrust aimed at his throat and responding with a hammer strike that Vader barely force-pushed aside. "Your technique is impressive, your strength considerable, but I sense great conflict within you, warrior. You serve darkness, yet I feel the light you once carried has not fully died." "You know nothing of me," Vader growled, the mechanical breathing growing slightly more rapid as he increased his assault tempo. His lightsaber became a blur of crimson, striking from 17 different angles in as many seconds, a killing sequence that had overwhelmed Jedi Masters during Order 66. Thor blocked 16 and accepted the 17th, the blade cutting across his armored chestplate. The lightsaber scored the metal and drew a thin line of blood, actual damage the first Thor had sustained in this realm. But it was shallow, barely more than a cut, when it should have bisected him completely. Vader's yellow eyes widened behind his mask. The lightsaber had cut, yes, but like cutting through durasteel rather than flesh. This being's durability exceeded anything he'd encountered outside of pure force manifestations. "You draw blood," Thor said, glancing at the minor wound. "Well struck, but now let me show you the might of Asgard." Thor's eyes began to glow with electrical energy, pure white light that signaled the god of thunder unleashing his inherent divine nature. Lightning erupted from his body in all directions, not random bolts but controlled streams that arced toward Vader with predatory intent. The Sith Lord raised his hand, catching the lightning with the Force, channeling it around his body and into the ground. But there was so much of it. Force lightning was a dark side technique Vader knew well. Palpatine had used it to torture him countless times. But this was different. This wasn't Force energy twisted into electrical form. This was actual lightning, natural fury commanded by divine will, and it carried power measured in gigawatts rather than the modest outputs even the most skilled Sith could generate. Vader's Force barrier held for 3 seconds before the sheer amperage overwhelmed it. Lightning struck his armor, his cybernetics, his life support systems. Circuit breakers tripped, backup systems engaged. Pain, familiar, hated, all-consuming pain, lanced through his body as electricity found the organic parts of him that remained. The Dark Lord of the Sith fell to one knee, his breathing ragged, his connection to the Force wavering as his concentration shattered. Thor stopped the assault immediately. "I could kill you now," Thor said, his voice carrying not threat but simple statement of fact. "Your defenses are breached, your strength exhausted. By rights of combat, your life is forfeit." He lowered Mjolnir, the lightning fading from around his form. "But I am not your executioner, Lord Vader. I am a warrior, yes, but also a prince who understands mercy. Stand and let us speak as equals rather than enemies." Vader remained on one knee, his mechanical lungs working overtime to restore oxygen to his damaged system. Rage boiled within him, rage at being defeated, rage at being shown mercy, rage at the compassion in this stranger's voice that reminded him too much of who he'd once been. The dark side fed on that rage, offering him power, urging him to strike while this fool's guard was down. But beneath the rage, something else stirred. Curiosity. This Thor had beaten him decisively, could have killed him without difficulty, yet offered mercy and dialogue. When was the last time an enemy had done that? When was the last time anyone had treated Darth Vader as something other than a monster to be feared or a weapon to be deployed? "Why?" Vader asked, his voice strained. "Why spare me?" You know I am your enemy. You know I will continue to pursue you." "Because I have been where you are," Thor replied, moving to offer his hand to help Vader rise. "I have fallen to darkness, to rage, to the seductive promise of power without responsibility. I destroyed cities in my arrogance and nearly doomed my realm through pride. But I was given a chance to change, to become worthy of the power I wielded. Perhaps you deserve that same chance." Vader stared at the offered hand for a long moment. Then slowly, he reached up and grasped it. Thor pulled him to his feet with casual strength that further demonstrated the power disparity between them. They stood facing each other, no longer in combat stances, but not quite at peace either. "You speak of things you cannot understand," Vader said, but his voice carried less venom than before. "I have done things that are beyond redemption. I serve an empire built on order through strength. There is no going back from the choices I have made." "There is always a path forward," Thor countered. "It may not undo what has been done, but it can prevent what might be. You were something different once, before this armor, before this darkness. That person still exists within you. I can sense it." "He died," Vader stated flatly. "Anakin Skywalker died with the Jedi Order." "Did he? Or does he simply hide behind a mask, afraid to face what he has become?" The words struck dangerously close to truths Vader had buried beneath decades of pain and hatred. He wanted to lash out, to silence this infuriating warrior, who spoke as if he knew anything about the burdens carried by the Chosen One who had fallen. But his life support systems were still recovering from the lightning assault, and his connection to the Force remained unstable. Before Vader could formulate a response, the Seventh Sister's voice crackled over his comlink. "Lord Vader, we have incoming ships, rebel signatures. It appears the insurgents on Lothal have taken an interest in our visitor." Thor and Vader both turned to see 3 ships approaching, a modified VCX-100 light freighter flanked by 2 small fighters. The vessels moved with the cautious aggression of experienced pilots dealing with unknown situations, maintaining distance while clearly observing the scene below. Aboard the Ghost, Hera Syndulla gripped the controls with white-knuckled intensity as she studied the crater and the figures within it. Her crew crowded the cockpit, each reacting differently to what they were seeing. "That's Vader down there," Kanan Jarrus said, his hand unconsciously moving to where his lightsaber hung at his belt. The former Jedi could feel the dark side radiating from the Sith Lord even at this distance. "And an Inquisitor, and someone who just took on both of them and is still standing," Sabine Wren finished, her Mandalorian tactical instincts parsing the battle's aftermath. "Look at the scorch marks, the scattered stormtroopers. Whatever that golden warrior is, he just fought the Empire's best and won." "Should we engage?" Zeb asked, his massive hands flexing in anticipation of combat. "No," Hera decided. "We observe, we learn, and we figure out if this stranger is an opportunity or another threat we can't afford." On the ground, Thor looked up at the rebel ships with interest. "More of your people?" he asked Vader. "Insurgents," Vader corrected. "Criminals and traitors who reject the Emperor's rule. They are to be captured or eliminated on sight." "And yet you make no move to attack them while they observe us," Thor noted. "Curious." Vader's hand tightened on his lightsaber, but he didn't ignite it. His systems were still recovering, and his pride had already been damaged enough for one day. Engaging rebel forces while weakened, in front of a being who had just demonstrated superiority, would only compound his humiliation. "This is not over," Vader told Thor. "You have demonstrated remarkable power, but you remain an unknown variable in Imperial space. The Emperor will want to speak with you. One way or another, you will come before him. If your Emperor wishes an audience, he may request one properly," Thor replied. "I am willing to speak with your leaders to understand this realm and its conflicts, but I will not be dragged before anyone like a criminal. I am a prince of Asgard, and I will be treated as such, or not at all." Before Vader could respond, a holographic projection materialized between them, a figure in dark robes with features hidden in shadow, but whose presence carried authority that made even Vader stiffen to attention. Emperor Palpatine had been monitoring the situation personally. "Lord Vader," the Emperor's voice carried across light years with sibilant precision. "It appears you have encountered something unique. Tell me, stranger, what are you that you can best my apprentice so easily?" Thor studied the hologram with the same attention he'd given everything else in this realm. "I am Thor Odinson, son of Odin All-Father, Prince of Asgard and wielder of Mjolnir. I come from a realm beyond your knowledge, displaced by cosmic forces. I seek only information and passage home." "How fascinating," Palpatine purred. "A god or so you claim, and yet here you stand in my galaxy, subject to my empire's laws. Whether you acknowledge them or not, you have power, yes, but you lack understanding of the forces at play here. You lack perspective." "I understand tyranny when I see it," Thor replied coldly. "You rule through fear and oppression. Your warriors attack without honor. Your empire crushes those who desire only freedom. These truths require no special perspective to recognize." "Such righteous conviction," the Emperor said, and Thor could hear the smile in his voice. "Tell me, Prince Thor, how many have you killed in your long life? How many beings fell to your hammer in the name of protecting your precious 9 realms? Do not presume to judge an empire you do not understand while your own hands are stained with the blood of thousands." The accusation struck home because it was true. Thor had killed, in war, in defense, sometimes in anger. He had led armies and seen populations fall beneath Asgardian military might. His journey to worthiness had begun precisely because he'd been a warrior who solved problems through violence first and wisdom second. "I do not claim to be without sin," Thor said quietly, "but I have learned from my failures. I have grown beyond the warrior who valued only strength. Can you say the same, Emperor? Or do you simply accumulate power while the galaxy suffers?" Palpatine's hologram flickered. With what might have been anger or amusement, it was difficult to tell. "You will learn, Prince of Asgard, that this galaxy requires firm leadership to prevent chaos. The Jedi failed because they were too weak to do what was necessary. I succeed because I understand that order must sometimes be imposed, not requested." "Then we are enemies," Thor stated simply, "for I have seen what imposed order looks like. And it always ends the same way, with tyrants overthrown and people celebrating their freedom." "We shall see," Palpatine replied. "Lord Vader, withdraw your forces. Let our visitor experience the galaxy without Imperial interference. Let him see what becomes of worlds when strength is absent. Perhaps then he will understand the necessity of the Empire." The hologram vanished, leaving Vader, Thor, and the watching rebels in confused silence. The Emperor's strategy was unclear. Why allow such a powerful unknown entity to roam freely? What game was Palpatine playing? Vader understood, though he didn't explain it to Thor. The Emperor wanted this warrior to see the galaxy's chaos, to witness the Rebel Alliance's methods, to understand that without strong central authority, the galaxy would tear itself apart. It was a gamble that Thor's sense of honor would ultimately drive him to see the Empire as necessary, if not noble. "You have 1 week," Vader told Thor. 1 week to explore, to learn, to witness this galaxy without Imperial interference. Then we will speak again, and you will make your choice. Serve the Empire or be destroyed by it. "I need no permission to explore," Thor replied. "But I will take this time to understand your conflict before I decide where I stand." He looked up at the rebel ships still hovering overhead. "And perhaps I will speak with those who oppose you to hear their perspective on this empire you claim is so necessary." Vader turned and walked toward his shuttle without responding, the seventh sister and her stormtroopers falling in behind him. Within minutes, the Imperial forces had withdrawn, leaving Thor alone in the crater with only the circling rebel ships for company. Hera made a decision. "Bring us down. Let's meet this Thor properly as potential allies rather than observers." The ghost descended toward the crater, and Thor watched it come with a mixture of hope and wariness. In the span of an hour, he'd fought an empire's warriors and been offered a glimpse into a galactic conflict he didn't yet understand. But one thing was becoming clear. This was not a realm where he could simply demand passage home and depart. This was a galaxy at war, and whether he wanted it or not, he was now part of that war's equation. The question was, which side deserved the strength of Asgard's thunder? The ghost's boarding ramp descended with a pneumatic hiss, and Thor watched 5 figures emerge, a diverse group that immediately struck him as warriors rather than soldiers. There was a crucial difference. Soldiers followed orders and maintained formation. Warriors carried themselves with individual competence, each one a threat in their own right. The Twi'lek woman at the front moved with pilot's confidence, her leku marked with distinctive patterns that suggested clan heritage. Beside her, a human male with a lightsaber at his belt immediately caught Thor's attention. Another wielder of that contained plasma blade, but this one felt different through whatever senses allowed Thor to perceive such things. Less corrupted than the woman Inquisitor, more conflicted. The others were equally intriguing. A Mandalorian female whose armor bore the marks of a warrior culture Thor recognized instinctively, a massive Lasat whose build suggested strength that might actually prove interesting in combat, and a young human boy whose force presence, if Thor was correctly identifying that strange energy, burned with untrained but remarkable potential. "That's far enough," the Twi'lek called out when they were 20 meters from Thor. Her hand rested casually near her holstered blaster, ready but not threatening. "I'm Captain Hera Syndulla of the Ghost. We saw your conversation with the Empire. Anyone who makes Vader retreat is someone we want to talk to." "I am Thor, son of Odin," he replied, Mjolnir hanging loosely at his side, in a non-threatening position that could become defensive in an instant. "And I did not make your Lord Vader retreat. His Emperor commanded it. There is a difference." "Fair point," Hera acknowledged. She gestured to her companions. "This is Kanan Jarrus, Sabine Wren, Garazeb Aurelios, and Ezra Bridger. We're part of a growing movement opposing the Empire's tyranny. Based on what you said to Palpatine's hologram, I'm guessing you're not a fan of oppressive regimes either." "I have no love for tyrants," Thor confirmed, "but I also do not yet understand this conflict. I arrived in your realm by accident, through means I am still attempting to comprehend. Until I find my way home, I seek to learn about this galaxy before choosing where my strength should be applied. Kanan stepped forward, his hand dropping from his lightsaber, a gesture of trust that Thor appreciated. You're not force-sensitive, but you fought Vader to a standstill. Actually, more than a standstill from what we saw. How is that possible? I am Asgardian, Thor explained, though he suspected the term meant nothing to them. My people are what some realms call gods, though we are mortal enough, simply longer lived and more powerful than most beings. My father is Odin All-Father, king of Asgard, and I am his firstborn son. I wield Mjolnir, a weapon forged in the heart of a dying star and imbued with enchantments that allow only the worthy to lift it. Ezra's eyes widened. Wait, you're an actual god, like from mythology. From reality, Thor corrected gently, though I suspect your myths and mine come from different worlds entirely. This force you speak of, I can sense it, but it is not the source of my power. I command lightning through birthright and divine nature, not through your mystical energy field. Sabine had been studying Thor's armor and Mjolnir with the analytical eye of someone who understood craftsmanship. That hammer, you said it was forged in a dying star? What kind of metal could withstand that? Uru, Thor said, allowing her curiosity. A metal found only in Asgard's realm, capable of withstanding forces that would vaporize any other substance. The hammer was commissioned by my father and forged by dwarven smiths of extraordinary skill. It has served me for over 1,000 years. 1,000 years, Zeb rumbled, his massive frame shifting skeptically. You don't look a day over 30 human years. Asgardians age differently than most species. I am, by my people's reckoning, still relatively young, though by your standards, I have lived many lifetimes. Thor paused, considering how much to share. I have fought in more wars than I can count, traveled across realms and dimensions, stood with heroes and against villains of cosmic significance. And yet I find myself here in a galaxy I do not recognize, facing conflicts I do not yet comprehend. Hera exchanged glances with Kanan, a silent communication between longtime partners. Then she made a decision. Come aboard the Ghost. Let us share what we know about this galaxy, this empire, and why we fight against it. Then you can decide for yourself where you stand. You trust me so quickly? Thor asked, genuinely curious. Your empire considers me a threat. For all you know, I could be a weapon they're deploying against you. Vader doesn't retreat from his own weapons, Kanan said dryly. And more than that, I may not be able to sense your power through the Force, but I can read people. You believe what you said about opposing tyranny. Whether you'll actually help us remains to be seen, but I don't think you're working for the Empire. Thor considered the offer. These rebels clearly represented the opposing force to the Empire, the side fighting against Palpatine's rule. But he'd learned through painful experience not to assume the enemy of his enemy was automatically his friend. Still, he needed information, and these warriors seemed willing to provide it without demanding submission first. Very well, Thor agreed. I will hear your tale. But know this, I make no promises of alliance until I understand your conflict fully. I have made the mistake of choosing sides too quickly before. I will not repeat that error. Fair enough, Hera said. Follow us. The interior of the Ghost was cramped by Asgardian standards, but felt lived in and functional. Thor had to duck slightly to avoid hitting his head on various conduits and ceiling fixtures as they made their way to the common area. The ship's walls bore the marks of hasty repairs and customization. This was a vessel that had seen combat and survived through skill and determination rather than superior firepower. They gathered in the common area, and over the next hour, the Ghost Crew told Thor their story, and through it, the story of the galaxy. They spoke of the old Republic, a democratic government that had ruled for 1,000 years, with the Jedi Order serving as peacekeepers and mediators. They described the Clone Wars, a massive conflict orchestrated by a hidden Sith Lord to grant himself emergency powers and turn the Republic's army against the Jedi. They explained Order 66, the betrayal that had seen clone troopers gun down their Jedi generals across the galaxy in a coordinated massacre. Kanan's voice grew tight when describing that day. "I was just a Padawan, a Jedi in training. My master died protecting me from our own troops. I've been hiding ever since, trying to survive while the Empire hunted down every Force sensitive they could find." They told Thor about the rise of the Galactic Empire, how Palpatine had transformed democracy into dictatorship while claiming to bring order and peace. They described the Emperor's atrocities, entire species, enslaved dissident worlds, bombarded from orbit, resources extracted to feed an ever-expanding military machine. "The Empire doesn't negotiate," Hera explained, her voice carrying the weight of personal experience. "They don't compromise or seek peaceful solutions. They conquer, they control, and they destroy anything that resists. My homeworld of Ryloth has been subjugated, its people treated as second-class citizens or worse. That's the reality Palpatine offers, order through oppression." Sabine added her perspective as a Mandalorian. "My people have a complicated history with conflict. We've been warriors for millennia, not unlike your Asgardians from what you've described. But the Empire came to Mandalore and tried to strip away our culture, our traditions, everything that made us who we are. They want uniformity, control, everyone fitting into their narrow vision of order." Ezra, the youngest, spoke with passion born from personal loss. "My parents spoke out against the Empire. They broadcasted messages encouraging resistance. The Empire arrested them, and I never saw them again. I was 7. I've been on my own ever since, until Kanan and Hera found me." Thor listened to each story, his expression growing darker with every revelation. The pattern was sickeningly familiar. He had seen similar tyrannies across the 9 realms. Conquerors who claimed to bring order while actually imposing their will. Leaders who accumulated power by crushing those who opposed them. Systems that sustained themselves through fear and violence rather than consent and cooperation. "This Emperor Palpatine," Thor said when they had finished. "He is Sith, you said. What does that mean?" Kanan explained. "The Sith are an ancient order of dark side force users. Where Jedi seek balance and peace, the Sith embrace passion, anger, and the pursuit of power. They believe in domination. The strong rule the weak, and power is its own justification. For generations, the Jedi thought the Sith were extinct. But Palpatine had been hiding in plain sight, manipulating events to destroy the Jedi and seize control. And this Darth Vader is his apprentice. His enforcer," Kanan corrected grimly. "Vader hunts down surviving Jedi, crushes rebel cells, and enforces the Emperor's will across the galaxy. He's killed more people than can be counted, and he shows no mercy, no hesitation, no sign that he was ever anything other than a monster." Thor thought of his brief combat with Vader, the darkness he'd sensed, but also the conflict beneath it. "I am not certain that is entirely accurate," he said carefully. "I fought Vader. I sensed something within him. Pain, yes, and anger, but also regret buried so deeply he may not even recognize it himself. He was not always this Darth Vader, was he?" The crew exchanged uncomfortable glances. Finally, Kanan spoke. "There are rumors, whispers from surviving Jedi who knew the old order. Some say Vader was once a Jedi Knight named Anakin Skywalker. The Chosen One prophesied to bring balance to the Force. But if that's true, then he fell further and faster than any Jedi in history. Whatever he was, that person is dead now." "Perhaps," Thor said. "Or perhaps he simply needs someone to believe he can be more than what he has become." He saw their skeptical expressions and raised a hand. "I do not say this from naivety. I have faced beings consumed by darkness. Some are truly lost beyond any redemption, but others merely need someone to show them a different path." "Vader has killed thousands," Hera said flatly. "He destroyed my squadron on Ryloth. He's hunted us across the galaxy. Whatever he might have been once, he's our enemy now." "I understand," Thor said. And he did. These were not warriors seeking vengeance. They were survivors fighting for their lives against overwhelming force. They couldn't afford the luxury of mercy for their greatest enemy. Zeb had been unusually quiet, but now he spoke up. "So what about you? We've told you our story, showed you why we fight. Are you with us, or are you going to walk away because this isn't your conflict?" It was a fair question, delivered with the bluntness of a warrior who had no patience for pretty words. Thor appreciated that. "Your cause is just," Thor said slowly, weighing each word. "Your emperor is a tyrant, your empire built on oppression. If I were to fight, it would be against such darkness." He paused. "But I am not of this galaxy. My realm, my people, my responsibilities, they all lie elsewhere. I have a duty to return home, to Asgard, to continue serving as protector of the 9 realms." "So you'll just leave?" Ezra asked, disappointment clear in his young voice. "You have all this power, you could make a real difference, but you're just going to find a way home and forget about us?" The accusation stung because Thor recognized the same argument he'd once made to his father, when Odin had counseled caution and Thor had wanted to charge into battle. How many times had he been the young warrior demanding action, frustrated by those who preached restraint? "I do not know if I can find a way home," Thor admitted. "The method that brought me here is beyond my understanding. The Bifrost, my people's means of traveling between realms, cannot reach me here. I am, for the moment, trapped in your galaxy, whether I wish it or not." "Then while you're here," Hera pressed, "will you help us? We're not asking for eternal commitment, but the Empire is hunting us. Vader wants you captured, and Palpatine is playing some game we don't understand yet. We could use someone with your power on our side." Thor stood and walked to the Ghost's viewport, looking out at Lothal's grasslands where he'd crashed, where he'd fought, where he'd been offered 2 different visions of this galaxy's conflict. Empire promising order through control, rebels offering freedom through resistance, both claiming righteousness, both asking for his strength. "There is a test," Thor said quietly, "a way to determine worthiness that has served me well." He turned back to them, Mjolnir hanging at his side. "My hammer was enchanted by my father. Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor." Only those who are truly worthy can lift Mjolnir. It judges the heart, the character, the soul of whoever attempts it. "And you want us to try?" Kanan asked, understanding where this was going. "I want to see how the hammer judges you," Thor confirmed. "I have heard your words, seen your conviction, but Mjolnir will reveal truth that even you may not recognize in yourselves. If you are who you claim to be, true warriors fighting for just cause, then let the hammer confirm it." He placed Mjolnir on the ghost's deck, the Uru metal ringing softly against the metal floor. "If any of you can lift it, you will gain not just my respect, but my certainty that your cause is worthy." And perhaps, in that moment, the hammer's power itself. The ghost crew stared at the weapon, understanding that Thor had just turned their request for alliance into a challenge. But more than that, he'd offered them a chance to prove, beyond any doubt or argument, that they fought for righteousness rather than merely opposing tyranny with their own agenda. "All right," Hera said, stepping forward. "Let's see what your hammer thinks of us." She grasped Mjolnir's handle and pulled. The hammer didn't move. Hera strained, her muscles tensing as she applied increasing force to Mjolnir's handle. She was a pilot accustomed to handling heavy equipment, maintaining her ship, wrestling with controls during combat maneuvers. She was strong, capable, and determined. The hammer sat on the deck as though it had been welded there. After 30 seconds of genuine effort, Hera released the handle and stepped back, breathing heavily. "Well," she said with forced lightness, "I guess I'm not worthy of godly weapons. Good to know." Thor's expression remained neutral, but his tone was gentle. "Worthiness is not a simple measure of goodness, Captain Syndulla. My hammer judges many things: intent, character, willingness to bear the burden of power. You are a worthy leader, a skilled warrior, a being of principle, but Mjolnir seeks something specific, something that I myself struggled to achieve for many years." "And what's that?" Sabine asked, already moving forward to take her turn. "That is for each person to discover themselves," Thor replied. Sabine grasped the hammer with both hands, her Mandalorian strength evident in her stance. She pulled, grunted, adjusted her grip, and tried again. Nothing. The hammer might as well have been a geological feature rather than a movable object. After a minute of creative attempts, including trying to slide it across the deck rather than lift it, she admitted defeat. "Oh, sick," she muttered in Mandoa. "I've moved starship components heavier than that should be. What's it made of? Collapsed star matter?" "Among other things," Thor confirmed, "but the weight you feel is not physical mass. It is the hammer judging you and finding that while you possess great strength and skill, you are not yet ready to wield the power it offers." Zeb approached next, cracking his knuckles with confidence. "Stand back, everyone. Let the Lasset show you how it's done." His species was renowned for strength. Lasset warriors could bend durasteel and throw fully armored humans like children's toys. Zeb wrapped both massive hands around Mjolnir's handle and heaved with everything he had. His feet scraped against the deck, his muscles bulged, sweat beaded on his forehead, and Mjolnir sat motionless, as indifferent to his efforts as it had been to Hera's and Sabine's. "Karabast!" Zeb roared, releasing the hammer in frustration. "That's not natural, that's not possible." "It is very possible," Thor said calmly, "and it tells me something important about each of you. Captain Syndulla, you carry the weight of leadership. Every decision, every loss, every compromise necessary to keep your crew alive. That burden makes you cautious, hesitant to seize power that might corrupt your judgment. Sabine, you bear the guilt of your past with the Empire, the weapons you helped create, the people who died because of your genius. You doubt your own worthiness, and the hammer senses that doubt. And Zeb. The Lasat turned to Thor, anger and genuine curiosity mixing on his features. You are the last survivor of your people's honor guard, Thor continued, his voice carrying the weight of someone who understood such loss. You failed to protect Lasan when the Empire destroyed your world. That failure haunts you, makes you question whether you deserve to wield power when you couldn't use it to save those you loved. The hammer feels that guilt, and it weighs heavier than any physical mass. The accuracy of Thor's assessment struck each of them like a physical blow. He had identified their deepest wounds, the hidden doubts they barely acknowledged to themselves, with the casual precision of someone who had struggled with similar burdens. "How do you know all that?" Ezra asked quietly. "Because I carried similar failures," Thor replied. "I was arrogant, reckless, valued strength over wisdom. I nearly triggered a war between realms through my pride. My father cast me out, stripped me of my power, and sent me to Midgard, what you might call Earth, to learn humility. I could not lift Mjolnir for days while I learned what it meant to be truly worthy. So yes, I recognize the weight of guilt and doubt. I have borne it myself." Kanan had been standing apart, watching the others attempt and fail. Now he approached the hammer slowly, his connection to the Force allowing him to sense something about the weapon, even if he couldn't fully understand it. There was life in that Uru metal, not organic life, but something equally real, intent, purpose, judgment. "I'm not sure I want to know what it sees in me," Kanan said, but he grasped the handle anyway. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Kanan's eyes widened as he felt something, not the Force, but something adjacent to it, probing his spirit, examining his choices, weighing his soul against standards he couldn't quite perceive. He saw flashes of memory, his master falling to clone troopers' blaster fire, himself running and hiding. Years spent surviving rather than fighting, the fear that had kept him from embracing his Jedi identity, but also other memories. Finding Hera, building a crew, taking in Ezra as a student despite knowing it would paint a target on both their backs, choosing to fight even when running would be safer. Mjolnir shifted slightly under his grip. Everyone in the room tensed. Thor leaned forward, genuinely interested. Kanan pulled harder, pouring not just physical strength, but the Force itself into the effort. The hammer rose a fraction of a centimeter off the deck, barely noticeable but unmistakable. Then it settled back down, and Kanan released it, breathing hard. I almost, he stammered. "You did," Thor confirmed, and there was respect in his voice. "You came closer than most ever do." The hammer sensed potential in you, not current worthiness, but the possibility of achieving it. You walk a difficult path, Kanan Jarrus. You are a Jedi who hides, a warrior who fled, a master who doubts his ability to teach. But you are also a being who chooses courage despite fear, who stands against darkness despite knowing the cost. Continue that path, and perhaps one day Mjolnir will find you worthy. Kanan nodded slowly, processing what the experience had revealed about himself. The hammer had shown him both his failures and his potential, and somehow that was more valuable than simply being able to lift it. That left Ezra. The young man approached the hammer with a mixture of trepidation and hope. He was the youngest, the least experienced, the one still learning what it meant to be a Force user and a warrior. Part of him expected to fail like the others, but another part, the part that dreamed of being a Jedi, of making a real difference, desperately wanted to succeed. "Here goes nothing," Ezra muttered and grasped Mjolnir's handle. The effect was immediate and shocking. Lightning arced from the hammer up Ezra's arms, not painful but surprising, crackling with energy that made his hair stand on end. The weapon trembled as if undecided. Images flooded Ezra's mind, his parents broadcasting their message, Imperial officers dragging them away, years of surviving alone, stealing and scavenging, the anger and fear that had defined his childhood. But also meeting Kanan and Hera, learning about the Force, discovering he could make a difference, choosing to stand up rather than hide, putting himself in danger to protect others even when he was terrified. The hammer rose half a centimeter, then a full centimeter, then it settled back to the deck with finality, and the lightning faded. Ezra released the handle, looking simultaneously disappointed and awed. What was that? It moved. Not much, but it moved. Thor was staring at the young man with an expression that mixed surprise with something approaching pride. "You have tremendous potential, Ezra Bridger. The hammer sees in you a spirit that could become worthy. Perhaps already is worthy in ways you don't yet recognize. You are young, untrained, uncertain of yourself. But your heart is pure in ways that many adults are not. You fight not from hate or revenge, but from a genuine desire to help others. That is rare and precious. But I still couldn't lift it," Ezra said. "Not yet," Thor agreed, "but closer than you realize. The hammer responded to you because it sensed possibility, the potential for greatness if you continue your growth. That is not failure, young one. That is promise." The Ghost's crew stood in contemplative silence, each processing what the hammer's judgment had revealed. They had expected a simple test of strength or character. Instead, Mjolnir had shown them their own souls, the guilt they carried, the doubts they harbored, the potential they possessed. "So," Hera said finally, "none of us can lift your hammer. Does that mean you won't help us?" "No," Thor replied, surprising them. "It means you are honest warriors fighting for a cause you believe in, carrying the weight of your choices and failures, striving to be better despite your doubts. That is more than many can claim." He lifted Mjolnir with casual ease, the hammer practically leaping into his hand. "I cannot promise to fight your entire war or solve all your problems. But while I search for a way home, I will stand against tyranny where I find it. Your empire has proven itself unjust. Your emperor has revealed himself as a despot. And you, flawed though you may be, fight for freedom rather than domination. That is enough for me to choose a side." "Really?" Ezra's face lit up with hope. "You'll help us?" "On certain terms," Thor cautioned. "I will not follow orders blindly. I will not participate in actions I deem dishonorable. And if I find a way to return to Asgard, I will take it regardless of your conflict status. But yes, while I am here, I will lend my strength to your rebellion." Kanan extended his hand in the traditional gesture of alliance. "Then welcome to the fight, Thor of Asgard. Fair warning, the Empire has endless resources, overwhelming military superiority, and a Dark Lord who will not forget your earlier confrontation. This won't be easy." Thor grasped his hand, warrior to warrior. "I have fought frost giants in the heart of Jotunheim, battled fire demons in the depths of Muspelheim, and stood against beings who considered themselves gods. Your empire, for all its power, is merely one more tyrant to oppose. I have faced worse and prevailed. I like this guy, Zeb said with a grin. Finally, someone on our side with enough firepower to worry the Empire for once. Sabine was already pulling up tactical displays on her datapad. If you're serious about helping, we need to figure out how to best use your abilities. You took on Vader and won. That's incredible, but it also means the Empire knows about you now. They'll be planning countermeasures, trying to find ways to neutralize you. Let them plan, Thor said with confidence that came from genuine power rather than arrogance. I have faced enemies who schemed for centuries. I will face your Empire's strategists as well. Hera's comlink chirped, and she answered it to hear Chopper, the Ghost's astromech droid, warbling urgently. Her expression shifted from cautious optimism to concern. We have incoming Imperial ships, multiple star destroyers entering orbit. Vader might have withdrawn, but it looks like the Empire is sending reinforcements. They're establishing a blockade, Kanan said, checking his own tactical display. They can't capture Thor through force, so they're trying to trap him on Lothal. Classic Imperial strategy: isolate the target, then apply pressure. Thor walked to the viewport, looking up at the orbital space where new ships were indeed appearing, massive wedge-shaped vessels that dwarfed anything he'd seen so far. Star destroyers, each one carrying thousands of troops, hundreds of fighters, and enough firepower to bombard a planet into submission. They believe ships can contain me, Thor observed. They underestimate what Mjolnir can do. Can you fly? Ezra asked. Like actually fly through space? Mjolnir grants me the power of flight, Thor confirmed. I can survive in void without air for extended periods. If necessary, I can leave this world and confront those vessels directly. That's... Sabine struggled for words. That's insane. You can't assault an Imperial fleet alone. Why not? Thor asked genuinely. I have done similar things in my own realm. Capital ships are formidable, but they are not invincible. Their weapons can be destroyed, their shields overwhelmed, their crews convinced to surrender through proper application of force. Hera shook her head in amazement. You really are from a completely different universe. In this galaxy, one person doesn't attack a fleet. That's suicide. In my universe, Thor countered, one warrior with sufficient power can change the course of battles. I have been that warrior many times. He looked at each of them. But I am willing to learn your tactics, understand your methods. If you believe there is a better approach than direct confrontation, I will listen. We need to get off Lothal, Hera decided. If the Empire is establishing a blockade, they'll start searching the surface systematically. We can't protect you and ourselves from that kind of attention. Then I will ensure you are not trapped here because of me, Thor said. He raised Mjolnir toward the ceiling, feeling the storm he commanded stirring in Lothal's atmosphere. I will give you the opening you need to escape, and perhaps I will teach your Empire a lesson about underestimating visitors from other realms. Lightning began to crackle around his form as divine power answered his call. Above Lothal, storm clouds gathered with supernatural speed, responding to the God of Thunder's will. The Imperial blockade was about to discover why Thor Odinson was called the God of Thunder, and why Asgardians were feared across 9 realms. The bridge of the Imperial Star Destroyer Relentless was a study in military precision. Officers moving between stations with practiced efficiency, technicians monitoring sensor arrays that tracked every object within 100,000 kilometers, and at the center of it all, Captain Brunson, maintaining the calm authority expected of someone who commanded a vessel carrying over 37,000 crew and enough firepower to sterilize a continent. Status of the blockade? Brunson asked his tactical officer. All ships in position, sir. We have complete orbital coverage. Nothing larger than a starfighter can leave Lothal's atmosphere without our detection and interception. Ground forces are conducting systematic sweeps of major population centers. Excellent. Lord Vader wants this Thor captured or eliminated. We will not fail the Empire. Brunson studied the tactical display, satisfied with the net they'd cast. The target was powerful, yes, but ultimately just one being against the full might of the Imperial Navy. Superior firepower and proper tactics always prevailed. Then the meteorologist spoke up, confusion in her voice. Sir, we're detecting unusual atmospheric disturbances over the Western Hemisphere. Storm formation occurring at impossible speeds. Current readings suggest wind velocities exceeding Category 5 on the Beaufort scale and climbing. Impossible, the tactical officer scoffed. Lothal's weather patterns are well documented. The planet doesn't generate storms of that magnitude. I'm aware of that, sir, the meteorologist replied tersely, but the sensors don't lie. Whatever is generating this storm, it's not natural. Energy readings are... She stopped, her face going pale. Sir, the storm is directly beneath our position, and it's growing exponentially. Brunson moved to her station, studying the readings with growing unease. She was right. The storm had formed in the last 90 seconds, appeared centered on the exact location where their target had last been sighted, and was generating power outputs that his scientific training said should be impossible for atmospheric phenomena. Could it be some kind of rebel weather weapon? He asked. Before anyone could answer, lightning struck the Relentless, not scattered bolts from atmospheric discharge, but a concentrated column of electrical fury that targeted the Star Destroyer's shield generators with supernatural precision. The shields flared, absorbed the initial impact, and held. They were designed to withstand turbo-laser bombardments and asteroid collisions. But the lightning didn't stop. It poured upward from the storm below in a continuous stream, megawatt after megawatt of raw power that made the shield generators scream with thermal overload warnings. Shields at 80%, someone shouted. 75. They're draining faster than the reactors can compensate. Return fire, Brunson ordered. Target the source of that lightning. The Relentless's turbo laser batteries swiveled toward the coordinates below, their green energy blasts cutting through atmosphere towards the storm's center. The shots were perfectly aimed, properly calculated to hit their target with pinpoint accuracy. Thor flew through them. He rose from the storm like a mythological vision, golden armor gleaming, red cape streaming behind him, Mjolnir trailing lightning as he ascended toward the Imperial fleet at speeds that made atmospheric friction irrelevant. The turbo laser bolts that should have vaporized him instead splashed against divine resilience, burning his cape slightly but failing to slow his ascent. What in the Emperor's name? Brunson's professional composure cracked as his tactical display tracked something that shouldn't exist. A single humanoid figure flying through hard vacuum, surrounded by electrical discharge, heading directly for his ship at velocities approaching starfighter combat speeds. Thor covered the distance from surface to orbit in less than 30 seconds, Mjolnir's enchantments protecting him from vacuum and radiation, while his Asgardian constitution simply endured what would kill any unprotected organic being. He emerged from the atmosphere wreathed in lightning, his eyes glowing with divine power as he surveyed the blockade arrayed before him. 8 star destroyers hung in orbital formation, their wedge-shaped hulls bristling with weapons and shields raised to maximum. TIE fighters were already launching, hundreds of them, pouring from hangar bays like insects from a disturbed nest. It was an impressive display of military might, a fleet capable of conquering worlds. Thor had faced armies before. People of the Empire, his voice, amplified by Asgardian magic and the power of Mjolnir, carried across communication channels and through the very hulls of nearby ships. I am Thor Odinson, and I have no quarrel with your soldiers. You serve a tyrant, but many of you do so unknowingly, believing in order and peace. I offer you one chance. Withdraw your blockade and allow free passage, or face the wrath of Asgard. On the Relentless's bridge, Brunson stared at the communication officer. Did he just broadcast that across all Imperial frequencies? Yes, sir. Every ship in the fleet received it. Also, it's going out on civilian bands. Half of Lothal's population probably heard that declaration. Brunson's jaw tightened. Lord Vader had warned that this Thor possessed unusual abilities, but he hadn't mentioned the being could simply fly into space and address entire fleets. And now, because of that galaxy-wide broadcast, retreat would look like cowardice. The Empire didn't negotiate with threats, didn't show weakness before insurgents and alien invaders. All ships, Brunson commanded, weapons free. Eliminate the target. 8 star destroyers opened fire simultaneously. The storm of emerald turbo laser fire that converged on Thor's position was enough to slag mountains, boil oceans, or reduce capital ships to expanding clouds of debris. Each bolt carried gigawatts of destructive power, and there were hundreds of them filling space with a killing web that no single fighter could evade. Thor didn't try to evade. He spun Mjolnir in a defensive pattern, the hammer moving with speeds that defied physics, not because Uru metal was light, but because Asgardian strength and divine power made such speeds possible. Each turbo laser bolt that came within range was deflected, redirected, or simply absorbed by the hammer's enchantments. The space around Thor became a maelstrom of redirected energy, green bolts scattering in every direction as Mjolnir turned an Imperial fleet's firepower against itself. Several deflected shots struck nearby TIE fighters, vaporizing them instantly. Others hit Star Destroyer shield emitters, causing localized failures. One particularly well-aimed deflection struck another Star Destroyer's bridge viewport, shattering the transparasteel and venting atmosphere before emergency bulkheads sealed the breach. He's deflecting turbo laser fire, the tactical officer said, his voice hollow with disbelief. That's not possible. Nothing organic can track and intercept that volume of... I can see what he's doing, Brunson snapped. All fighters engage at close range. Overwhelm his defenses through volume of fire. The TIE swarm descended on Thor like a cloud of mechanical locusts, their twin ion engines screaming as they entered weapons range. Hundreds of fighters, each one piloted by trained Imperial aviators, opened fire in a coordinated pattern meant to saturate any possible defense. Thor summoned the storm. Lightning erupted from his position in every direction. Not random electrical discharge, but controlled streams of power that targeted specific fighters with predatory intelligence. Each bolt struck a TIE fighter's central ball cockpit, overloading systems and killing pilots before they could even scream. The space around Thor became an electrical hell where fighters exploded by the dozen, their wreckage creating debris fields that claimed even more ships. In 30 seconds, half the TIE fighter screen was simply gone. On the Ghost, which had been preparing to make an escape run through the blockade, Hera watched the orbital battle with stunned silence. Her tactical display showed the impossible, one being alone, engaging an Imperial fleet and winning. "I've never seen anything like this," she whispered. "He's fighting an entire blockade by himself." "And winning," Sabine added, her tactical mind parsing the battle even as it defied everything she'd been taught about warfare. "Look at how he's positioning himself, staying between the Star Destroyers so their own fire risks friendly ships, using the TIE fighters' debris as additional shields. He's not just powerful, he's tactically brilliant." Kanan could sense something through the Force, not Thor himself, but the effect he was having on the battle's participants. Fear was spreading through the Imperial fleet, their confidence shattering as they realized their weapons were ineffective against this golden warrior who commanded lightning like a god of ancient myth. "He's inspiring them," Kanan said quietly. "Not inspiring loyalty, inspiring terror. They're starting to believe he's unstoppable." Ezra's eyes were wide with amazement. "Is he unstoppable?" "Against conventional military forces," Kanan considered. "Maybe he's something this galaxy has never seen before. Power that doesn't come from technology or the Force, but from something else entirely. The Empire doesn't have a counter to that." Back in orbit, Thor pressed his advantage. He flew directly at the Relentless, dodging turbo laser fire with Asgardian reflexes, while returning lightning strikes that systematically destroyed the Star Destroyer's weapons emplacements. The ship's shields held barely, but Thor wasn't trying to destroy the vessel. He was demonstrating superiority, showing the Empire that their mighty warships were vulnerable to a single determined warrior with sufficient power. He flew along the Relentless's hull, Mjolnir's edge carving through sensor arrays and communication towers. Not vital systems, nothing that would kill the crew or cripple the ship permanently, but enough to make his point clear. "Your weapons cannot harm me, your shields cannot stop me. Your empire's might means nothing against Asgardian power." Captain Brunson watched his ship being systematically dismantled and made the hardest decision of his career. "All ships, cease fire, cease fire, pull back to high orbit. We cannot engage this target effectively." "Sir, Lord Vader's orders were explicit." "Lord Vader isn't watching his crew die for nothing," Brunson snapped. "We've lost over 200 fighters, sustained critical damage to 3 Star Destroyers, and haven't even scratched that thing out there. Tactical retreat is not cowardice when facing an enemy you cannot defeat. Now pull back before he decides to start killing crew instead of just disabling systems." The Imperial fleet withdrew, their formation breaking as Star Destroyers climbed to higher orbits where Thor hopefully wouldn't follow. The God of Thunder watched them go, Mjolnir still crackling with residual lightning, his cape tattered from turbo laser impacts but his body unmarked. He had fought an Imperial blockade and won without killing a single crew member, beyond the unfortunate TIE pilots who'd been caught in his lightning strikes. It was a victory that would be talked about across the galaxy, the day a single warrior made an Imperial fleet retreat. Thor returned to Lothal's surface, landing beside the Ghost with considerably more grace than his initial arrival. The crew was waiting outside the ship, their expressions mixing awe with concern. "You just attacked an entire Imperial fleet," Hera said, "alone, and you won." "I convinced them to withdraw," Thor corrected. "There is a difference between victory through violence and victory through demonstration of superior position. I could have destroyed those ships, killed their crews, eliminated the blockade permanently, but I chose to show mercy, to give them the opportunity to retreat with honor intact." "The Empire doesn't care about honor," Kanan warned. "They'll report this as a setback, analyze your fighting style, and develop countermeasures. Next time you face them, they'll be prepared." "Let them prepare," Thor said confidently. "I have faced enemies who studied me for years, learned my patterns, adapted their tactics. I prevailed because power, while not everything, matters greatly in warfare. Your empire has conventional military might. I have the strength of gods. There is no counter to that except greater power." Zeb was grinning like a child who just witnessed his favorite sports team win. "That was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. You just made the Empire look weak. When word of this spreads, and it will spread, people are going to start believing the rebellion has a chance." That observation sobered Thor slightly. He hadn't considered the political implications of his actions, the message his victory would send across the galaxy. He'd simply fought to protect the Ghost Crew and demonstrate that the Empire's blockade couldn't hold him. But Zeb was right. His actions would have consequences far beyond the immediate tactical situation. "Is that wise?" Thor asked. "To give people hope based on one warrior's strength? What happens when I leave? When I find my way back to Asgard? Will that hope collapse when I am no longer here to fight their battles?" "Maybe," Hera admitted. "But right now, the galaxy is drowning in despair. The Empire seems unstoppable, their control absolute. You just proved that's a lie. Even if you leave tomorrow, you've shown that the Empire can be beaten. That's worth something." "Besides," Sabine added pragmatically, "you're not leaving tomorrow. You said yourself you don't know how to get home. So for now, you're stuck with us. Might as well make the most of it." An alert chirped on Hera's datapad. She checked it, her expression shifting to concern. "We've got incoming transmission. It's from a rebel command cell. They want to meet with us. Specifically, they want to meet with Thor." "How do they already know?" Ezra asked. "Your new friend broadcast his declaration across every frequency in the sector," Hera reminded him. "Plus, hundreds of Imperial crew members just watched him dismantle their blockade. Word travels fast, especially when it's this significant." Thor considered the implications. He'd wanted to help the rebellion, to stand against the Empire's tyranny, but he'd envisioned doing so on his own terms, as an independent warrior lending his strength where needed. Now, it seemed, the rebellion wanted to formalize that arrangement, to bring him into their command structure, to turn him into a strategic asset. He had experience with such organizations, the Avengers, S.H.I.E.L.D., even Asgard's military hierarchy. He understood chains of command, coordinated operations, the value of working within larger structures, but he also knew the dangers of becoming a symbol, a legend, a being whose power overshadowed the very people he was trying to protect. "Where do they want to meet?" Thor asked. "Coordinates are for a location on Atollon," Hera replied. "It's where the rebellion's main fleet is gathering. If we go, you'll be meeting with the leaders of the entire Rebel Alliance, Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, the whole Command Council." "Then we go," Thor decided. "If I am to fight in this war, I should understand who leads it and what they truly fight for. And perhaps they can help me understand this galaxy better, help me find scholars or mystics, who might know how I can return home." "Are you sure?" Kanan asked. "Once the rebel leadership knows about you, once they see what you can do, they're going to want to deploy you strategically. You'll become a weapon in their war." "I am already a weapon," Thor said quietly. "The question is not whether I fight, but how I choose to apply my strength. And that choice remains mine, regardless of what your leaders might want. I am Thor, Prince of Asgard. I bow to no authority except my father's, and even then, only when his wisdom surpasses my own judgment." Hera smiled slightly. "You're going to fit right in with the rebellion. We're not great at following orders either." "Then let us depart for this Atollon," Thor said. "I will meet your leaders, hear their plans, and decide how best to serve the cause of freedom while I remain trapped in your galaxy." The Ghost's engines powered up, and within minutes they were climbing through Lothal's atmosphere toward the stars beyond. Behind them, Imperial forces regrouped and licked their wounds, already transmitting reports back to Coruscant about the unprecedented threat that had emerged. In his meditation chamber aboard the superstar destroyer Executor, Darth Vader received those reports with cold interest. The God of Thunder had just announced his presence to the entire galaxy, had proven himself capable of engaging Imperial fleets single-handedly, and was now apparently allying with the rebellion. Vader's mechanical breathing echoed in the chamber's darkness as he contemplated his next move. Thor had spared his life during their duel, had spoken of redemption and second chances. Part of Vader, the part that was still Anakin Skywalker, wanted to believe such things were possible, but that part was buried deep, crushed beneath decades of pain and service to the dark side. The Emperor had been very clear. Thor represented either a tool to be used or a threat to be eliminated. There was no third option. And if Vader couldn't defeat this Asgardian warrior through direct combat, he would need to find another way, perhaps through the people Thor had chosen to protect. In the Ghost's cockpit, Thor stood looking out at the stars, wondering how long it would be before he saw Asgard's golden spires again. He had family, friends, responsibilities in his own universe. But for now, Judy called him to fight in this strange galaxy against tyranny he could not ignore. He was the God of Thunder, and wherever he walked, storms followed. The Galactic Civil War was about to become far more complicated. The journey to Atollon took 3 days through hyperspace, time that Thor spent learning about the galaxy he'd inadvertently joined. The Ghost's crew took turns educating him, each offering perspectives that painted a fuller picture of the conflict consuming this realm. Hera explained the rebellion's structure, or rather its lack thereof. "We're not a unified military," she said, gesturing at star charts that showed scattered rebel cells across the galaxy. "We're dozens of independent groups loosely coordinated through shared intelligence and occasional joint operations. Some cells focus on propaganda and recruitment. Others run supply lines or safe houses. A few, like ours, actively engage Imperial forces. The Alliance is trying to bring us together into something resembling a proper military, but it's complicated." "Complicated how?" Thor asked. "Different groups have different priorities," Kanan explained. "Some want to overthrow the Empire completely. Others just want to protect their home systems. Some are willing to use any methods necessary, including tactics the Jedi would have considered too dark. Others refuse to compromise their principles, even when it costs lives. Getting everyone to agree on strategy is like herding cats made of pure stubbornness." Thor nodded, recognizing the pattern. Asgard faced similar challenges when coordinating the 9 realms against common threats. Each realm had its own priorities, its own leaders, its own definition of acceptable tactics. My father spent centuries building diplomatic frameworks to enable cooperation when it mattered most. "Your father sounds like a wise leader," Hera said. "He is," Thor agreed, his voice carrying unexpected weight. Though I spent many years resenting his caution, believing him weak for preferring negotiation to conquest. I was young and foolish, convinced that strength alone could solve any problem. It took being stripped of my power and cast out to understand that true leadership requires more than the ability to win battles. Ezra had been listening intently, his young mind absorbing lessons about leadership and power. "Is that when you couldn't lift your hammer? When your father cast you out?" "Yes," Thor confirmed. "He sent me to Midgard, Earth, powerless and mortal. I was to learn humility, to understand what it meant to be worthy of the power I'd wielded so carelessly. For days I tried to lift Mjolnir, and it would not budge. I watched beings far weaker than I in physical strength attempt what I could not, and I learned that worthiness has nothing to do with muscles or combat skill." "What changed?" Ezra asked. "How did you become worthy again?" Thor smiled, remembering. "I chose to sacrifice myself for others. A weapon of my father's enemies came to Earth seeking to destroy everything. I had no power, no way to stop it, but I placed myself between that weapon and innocent people anyway. I expected to die, but I died knowing I had done the right thing for the right reasons. That willingness to sacrifice for others, that was when Mjolnir deemed me worthy once more." The lesson hung in the air, unspoken but understood. Power meant nothing without the character to wield it responsibly. Sabine approached the topic from a different angle, showing Thor recordings of Imperial atrocities she'd compiled. Worlds burned from orbit, civilians executed for minor infractions, entire species enslaved to feed the Imperial war machine. The footage was difficult to watch, not because Thor was squeamish about violence, but because he recognized the pattern of systematic oppression he'd seen too many times across too many realms. "This is why we fight," Sabine said quietly, "not for political ideology or abstract principles, for them." She gestured at the faces in the recordings, beings of every species, age, and background, united only by their suffering under Imperial rule. Every day we don't fight, more people die. Every mission we don't complete, more worlds fall. The pressure is constant, the odds overwhelming, and the cost of failure is measured in billions of lives. "I understand," Thor said, and he did. He had carried similar burdens as protector of the 9 realms. But you must also understand, you cannot save everyone. Some battles will be lost. Some people will die despite your best efforts. If you try to carry the weight of every tragedy, it will crush you. "How do you deal with it?" Sabine asked. "The losses, the failures, the people you couldn't save." "Imperfectly," Thor admitted. "I have lost friends, seen realms fall, failed to prevent catastrophes I should have stopped. Each loss leaves scars. But I have learned that the only way forward is to continue fighting, to honor those who fell by ensuring their sacrifice meant something. Dwelling on past failures prevents you from preventing future ones." The conversation shifted when Zeb pulled up intelligence reports about Darth Vader, attempting to give Thor a fuller picture of the enemy he'd faced on Lothal. The reports painted a picture of systematic brutality, Jedi hunted and killed, rebel cells crushed without mercy, entire planets subjected to Imperial occupation after Vader personally led the assault. He's the Empire's weapon of terror, Zeb explained. When Vader comes to your world, you know things are about to get bad. He's killed more rebels than any other Imperial officer, and he does it without hesitation or remorse. Whatever he was before, if those stories about Anakin Skywalker are even true, that person is dead. Only the monster remains. Thor listened but remained unconvinced. I fought him. I sensed what lies beneath the armor and darkness. There is still conflict within him, still a part that remembers being something other than the Empire's executioner. That part may be buried, twisted, corrupted, but it exists. Even if you're right, Kanan said carefully, even if some fragment of Anakin Skywalker still exists within Vader, what difference does it make? He's killed thousands. He serves the Empire willingly. Whether he has doubts or internal conflicts doesn't change the harm he's caused. Perhaps not, Thor acknowledged, but it means he can still choose differently. Free will exists even for those who have fallen to darkness. I have seen beings redeem themselves from terrible acts. I have witnessed transformations I would not have believed possible. To declare someone beyond redemption is to strip them of agency, to claim they are incapable of change. That is a judgment I am not willing to make, even for your Dark Lord. The discussion was interrupted when the ghost dropped out of hyperspace at Atollon. The planet appeared as a rusty orange sphere, orbited by numerous moons, its surface marked by rocky terrain and sparse vegetation. But Thor's attention was immediately drawn to the fleet gathered in orbit. Dozens of ships of varying designs and conditions, from sleek Mon Calamari cruisers to battered Corellian corvettes, all bearing the symbol of the Rebel Alliance. That's the largest Rebel fleet ever assembled, Hera said with quiet pride. Ships from 100 different cells, crews from 1,000 worlds, all coming together because they believe we can win this war. Your victory at Lothal helped convince a lot of fence-sitters to commit their resources. Thor observed the fleet with a warrior's eye, noting their formations, weapon placements, and shield configurations. The ships were impressive for their diversity and the determination they represented, but compared to what he'd seen of Imperial Star Destroyers, they were outmatched. This rebellion fought not with superior firepower, but with courage, ingenuity, and stubborn refusal to surrender. He respected that immensely. The Ghost was directed to land at a surface base hidden among rocky canyons, camouflaged structures that blended seamlessly with Atollon's natural terrain. As they descended, Thor could see hundreds of rebel personnel moving between buildings, vehicles being maintained, defensive positions being fortified. This was a military force preparing for war, albeit one constructed from whatever resources they could scavenge or steal. The landing pad was crowded with rebel leadership waiting to meet him. Thor recognized the importance of the moment. This was political theater as much as military necessity. The rebellion needed to demonstrate they had powerful allies, to show their troops that the impossible victory at Lothal was not a fluke. Thor descended the Ghost's ramp with Mjolnir at his side, his presence causing visible reactions among the assembled rebels. Some stared in awe, others regarded him with cautious skepticism. A few, the more experienced warriors, studied him with the tactical assessment of soldiers evaluating a potential asset or threat. At the front of the gathering stood three figures who clearly commanded respect. A regal woman in white robes whose bearing suggested senatorial authority, an older man whose dignified composure marked him as experienced leadership, and a Mon Calamari admiral whose military decorations indicated a career of distinguished service. The woman in white stepped forward first, her voice carrying diplomatic warmth layered over steel determination. "I am Mon Mothma, leader of the Alliance to restore the Republic. On behalf of all free beings who resist the Empire's tyranny, I welcome you to Atollon, Thor of Asgard. Your actions at Lothal have already become legend among our ranks." "I am honored by your welcome, Senator Mothma," Thor replied, with the formal courtesy his mother had drilled into him during countless diplomatic functions. "Though I must clarify, I am a prince of Asgard, not its king. My father Odin still rules my realm, and I act with his authority only in matters concerning threats to the 9 realms. In this galaxy, I act as an independent warrior, lending my strength to a cause I judge worthy." The older man smiled at Thor's careful distinction. "I am Bail Organa, also a senator of the Republic that was and will be again, if we prevail. We understand you act independently. The Alliance does not seek to claim you as a soldier or weapon. We simply hope to coordinate our efforts toward mutual goals." "A diplomatic answer," Thor observed, "but also an honest one. I appreciate that." He turned to the Mon Calamari admiral, whose large eyes studied him with obvious military calculation. "Admiral Gial Akbar," the Mon Calamari introduced himself. "I command the Alliance's naval forces, such as they are. I watched the tactical recordings from Lothal. Your combat capabilities are extraordinary. I've never seen anything like your assault on the Imperial blockade. But I must ask, can you teach our pilots those tactics, or are you a singular asset that cannot be replicated?" "A practical question," Thor said, approving of the Admiral's directness. "I fear my abilities are unique to Asgardian physiology and divine heritage. I cannot teach your pilots to survive in vacuum or command lightning, but I can teach tactics for engaging superior forces, strategies for exploiting overconfidence, and methods for turning enemy strengths against them. Those lessons transfer across power levels." Mon Mothma gestured toward a command center built into the canyon walls. "Please join us. We have much to discuss regarding the war's current state and how your presence changes our strategic options." The command center was cramped but functional, its walls covered with star charts marking Imperial positions, rebel cells, and contested space. Holographic displays showed real-time intelligence from across the galaxy. Ship movements, Imperial communications intercepts, civilian reports of atrocities. It was overwhelming in its scope, a testament to how vast the conflict truly was. "The Emperor has issued a galaxy-wide alert about you," Bail Organa explained, pulling up an Imperial bulletin. "You're classified as an extreme threat requiring immediate containment. There's a reward of 1 million credits for information leading to your capture, alive if possible." "Flattering," Thor said dryly, "though I suspect alive if possible will quickly become dead is acceptable once they realize capturing me is impractical." "The bounty has already attracted attention," Admiral Akbar reported. "We've intercepted communications between bounty hunter guilds discussing strategies for bringing you in. Some of the galaxy's most dangerous mercenaries are preparing to come after you." "Let them come," Thor said with complete confidence. "I have faced worse than mercenaries seeking coin." "With respect," Akbar said carefully, "some of these hunters are extremely capable. and they'll be hunting the people around you as much as targeting you directly, threatening those you've allied with to force you into unfavorable situations. Thor's expression darkened. Then they will learn that threatening innocence is an excellent way to earn my full wrath. I have no patience for cowards who target the vulnerable to reach me. Mon Mothma raised a hand, steering the conversation back to strategic matters. The Empire is redeploying forces across several sectors in response to Lothal. They're reinforcing garrisons, establishing new blockades, and generally preparing for the possibility that you might appear anywhere to challenge them. This creates opportunities. Imperial resources spread thin, defensive positions weakened in areas they consider lower priority. You want to exploit their overreaction. Thor understood immediately. Strike where they've pulled forces away. Accomplish objectives while they prepare for threats that won't materialize. Exactly, Bail Organa confirmed. But we need your cooperation to make this work. If you're willing to appear in certain locations, make your presence known, draw Imperial attention. You can conduct operations elsewhere without interference, Thor finished. I become the distraction while you accomplish actual strategic goals. A sound plan, provided I am not asked to be merely a diversion. If I engage Imperial forces, I intend to accomplish objectives beyond simply drawing their attention. We would never waste a resource of your capabilities on pure diversion, Admiral Akbar assured him. But there are targets where your unique abilities could accomplish what entire fleets could not. Imperial facilities we couldn't assault directly. High-value Imperial officers we couldn't reach through conventional means. Missions where one extraordinarily powerful warrior could succeed where armies would fail. Thor recognized the pitch. They wanted to deploy him as a strategic asset, a living superweapon they could point at the Empire's most valuable targets. Part of him bridled at being used so calculatedly, but another part, the part that had served with the Avengers, that had coordinated with S.H.I.E.L.D., that understood how wars were actually won, recognized the necessity of such deployments. I will consider your proposals on a case-by-case basis, Thor said firmly. I am willing to engage in coordinated operations to strike targets you identify as strategically valuable to serve as part of larger plans. But I reserve the right to refuse missions I judge dishonorable or strategically unsound. And I will not participate in operations that unnecessarily endanger civilians or violate the codes of war I was raised to honor. That's fair, Mon Mothma said. We would never ask you to compromise your principles. The Alliance fights for justice and freedom. We cannot achieve those goals through methods that betray our values. Bail Organa leaned forward, his expression serious. But understand, Thor, war forces difficult choices, missions where every option is bad and we must choose the least terrible path. Operations where civilian casualties may occur, despite our best efforts to prevent them. The Empire has created a galaxy where clean hands are often an unaffordable luxury. We do our best, but we cannot promise perfection. I understand the reality of war, Thor replied quietly. I have made difficult choices, accepted terrible costs, done things I wish I could undo. I do not expect perfection from you any more than I expect it from myself. I ask only that we try, that we fight not just to defeat the Empire, but to be worthy of the galaxy we're trying to save. The words hung in the command center, a declaration of principle that resonated with everyone present. This was why they fought not just to overthrow a tyrant, but to build something better in the Empire's place. Admiral Akbar pulled up a star chart showing a sector Thor didn't recognize. "We have intelligence suggesting an Imperial superweapon facility on Eadu. It's heavily defended, deep in Imperial space, and developing technology that could devastate entire fleets. A direct assault would cost us ships we can't afford to lose. But one warrior who can survive in space, who can engage defenses designed to stop capital ships, could penetrate their defenses and destroy the facility," Thor finished. He studied the tactical data, noting defense platforms, shield generators, and garrison strength. It was a formidable target, but not beyond his capabilities. "What is the timeline on this weapon's completion?" "Unknown," Akbar admitted, "but intelligence suggests it's near operational status. Every day we delay increases the risk that the Empire deploys it against our fleet or sympathetic worlds." Thor nodded slowly. "Then this is a worthy target, but I will need detailed intelligence about the facility's layout, the nature of the weapon being developed, and contingency plans for evacuating any prisoners or forced laborers who might be held there. I will not destroy a facility without accounting for innocent lives." "We'll provide everything we have," Mon Mothma promised. As they continued discussing potential operations, Thor felt himself being drawn deeper into the rebellion's war. He'd promised to help while searching for a way home, but he was beginning to understand that his presence here wasn't just about applying his power where needed. It was about demonstrating that the Empire could be challenged, that tyranny wasn't inevitable, that hope had legitimate foundation. He was becoming a symbol whether he wanted to be or not. And symbols, Thor had learned, carried weight that exceeded any physical power. Outside the command center, word spread through the rebel base. The God of Thunder had arrived, and he was willing to fight. Morale, which had been cautiously optimistic, soared. Troops who had faced defeat after defeat suddenly believed victory was possible. Pilots who had flown suicide missions against overwhelming odds found themselves imagining scenarios where they actually survived. Thor Odinson didn't fully understand the hope he'd brought to this rebellion, but he was about to learn what happened when a galaxy desperate for heroes finally found one willing to fight. The assault on Eadu came 3 days later, after Thor had studied every intelligence report, memorized the facility's layout, and coordinated with rebel operatives who would provide distraction and extraction support. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Thor would create a frontal assault, spectacular enough to draw all defensive attention, while a small rebel strike team infiltrated to extract a defector. An Imperial scientist who had contacted the Alliance with information about the superweapon and wanted to escape before his conscience was buried under more atrocities. Thor approached Eadu alone, flying through space at speeds that made hyperspace seem pedestrian. Mjolnir pulled him forward through the void, the hammer's enchantments protecting him from radiation and vacuum, while his Asgardian constitution simply endured what would kill lesser beings. Behind him, at a safe distance, the Ghost and 2 other rebel ships waited for his signal. Eadu was a miserable world, constant rain, jagged mountains, and atmosphere so thick with moisture that visibility dropped to meters in the perpetual storms. Perfect conditions for hiding a secret Imperial facility. The base itself was built into a mountain face, its massive structure protected by shield generators, defense turrets, and a garrison of stormtroopers supported by AT-AT walkers and TIE fighter squadrons. Against a conventional assault, it would be nearly impregnable. Thor was far from conventional. He descended through Edu's storm-racked atmosphere like a meteor wrapped in lightning. His arrival announced by thunder that echoed across the mountains. The base's sensors screamed warnings: unidentified contact, extreme energy readings, trajectories suggesting hostile intent. Defense turrets swiveled toward him, their targeting computers struggling to lock onto something that radiated power signatures off every scale. Thor didn't give them time to adjust. He extended Mjolnir, and the storm answered his call. Eadu's natural weather patterns, already violent, became apocalyptic under divine influence. Lightning struck the base's shield generators with targeted fury, each bolt carrying gigawatts of power that made the shields flare and buckle. Thunder shook the mountain itself, causing minor avalanches that buried defensive positions. The base commander, Colonel Varys, watched the assault from his command center with growing horror. "What is that thing?" "It's him, sir," his intelligence officer replied, voice tight with fear. "The target from Lothal, Thor, the god of thunder." "That's impossible," Varys said, but his denial was automatic rather than genuine. The tactical displays didn't lie. A single humanoid figure was engaging his entire base, and the shields that had been designed to withstand orbital bombardment were failing under sustained lightning assault. "All fighters launch, ground forces, defensive positions. I want every weapon we have firing on that target." Varys knew it was futile even as he gave the orders. They'd all seen the reports from Lothal, but what else could he do? Surrender without firing a shot? TIE fighters screamed into Edu's storm, their pilots struggling with visibility and turbulence that threatened to slam them into mountainsides. They located Thor through sensor locks. He wasn't trying to hide, and opened fire with coordinated precision that would have shredded any normal target. Thor flew through their attack pattern like a dancer through rain, Mjolnir deflecting shots that came too close, while his divine reflexes allowed him to dodge others. Then he counterattacked, lightning arcing from his position to strike fighters with predatory accuracy. Within 90 seconds, an entire squadron was falling from the sky in burning pieces. On the ground, AT-AT walkers opened fire with their heavy turbo lasers, the green bolts cutting through rain and storm toward Thor's position. He caught one bolt on Mjolnir's face, the energy dissipating harmlessly, then spun and hurled the hammer. Mjolnir struck the lead walker's head with enough force to decapitate the command section. The massive war machine toppled forward, its body crushing defensive positions as it crashed. The hammer returned to Thor's hand instantly, already moving to block the next wave of fire from the remaining walkers. "This is insane," Colonel Varys whispered. "He's destroying everything. We can't stop him." "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," the communications officer said. "It's from the target. He wants to speak with you." Varys stared at the officer. "He's attacking us and wants to talk. Should I put him through?" What choice did Varys have? "Do it." Thor's voice filled the command center, carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Commander of this facility, I am Thor Odinson of Asgard. I have come for your weapon research and the scientist who wishes to defect. You cannot stop me. Your defenses are inadequate, your troops outmatched. I offer you one chance. Order your forces to stand down. Open your facility to inspection and release all prisoners and forced laborers. Do this, and I will ensure your garrison is treated as prisoners of war rather than casualties." Varys looked at his tactical displays. Shields at 30%, and falling, half his TIE fighters destroyed, ground defenses in disarray. In his entire military career, he'd never faced a situation so completely hopeless. The Empire trained its officers to fight to the last, to accept death before surrender. But they'd also trained him to recognize when continuing combat served no purpose except adding to casualty counts. "And if I refuse?" Varys asked, trying to buy time while his mind raced through options. "Then I will tear through your facility room by room until I find what I seek," Thor replied. "Your stormtroopers will die fighting, your scientists will be caught in crossfire, and you will have accomplished nothing except ensuring maximum casualties. I do not wish to kill your soldiers. They are not my true enemies, but I will do so if you force my hand." The command center was silent. Every officer present understood they were witnessing their commander's moment of truth. Follow Imperial doctrine and fight to pointless death, or accept the pragmatic reality that surrender might be the only way to save his troops' lives. "Sir," the tactical officer said quietly, "the rebel ships are moving into position. They're waiting for his signal. If we keep fighting, we're just giving them more time to complete whatever operation they're running parallel to his assault." Varys closed his eyes. His career was over either way. The Emperor didn't forgive commanders who lost facilities to single attackers, regardless of circumstances. But perhaps he could still save his troops. "All forces cease fire," he ordered. "Stand down. Repeat, all forces stand down." "Sir?" Multiple officers spoke simultaneously, shocked. "That's an order. Cease fire immediately." Varys turned to face his staff, seeing their confusion and judgment. "That being out there has already proven our weapons are useless against him. Continuing this fight serves no purpose except getting more of our people killed. We surrender." Outside, the base's weapons fell silent. TIE fighters pulled back to landing patterns. Even the ground troops lowered their weapons, though many did so reluctantly, trained instincts screaming that surrender violated everything they'd been taught. Thor landed at the facility's main entrance, Mjolnir still crackling with residual lightning, his armor scorched but his body unmarked. He'd won without killing a single additional Imperial soldier beyond those who had died in the initial exchange. A victory through overwhelming demonstration of superiority rather than through slaughter. The main doors opened and Colonel Varys emerged flanked by two stormtroopers whose weapons remained holstered. He approached Thor with the rigid dignity of a military officer accepting defeat. "I am Colonel Varys, commander of this facility," he said formally. "My forces have surrendered as per your terms. I trust you will honor your promise regarding treatment of prisoners." "I will," Thor confirmed. "Your soldiers will be detained but unharmed. They fought with courage against an enemy they could not overcome. There is no shame in that." Varys's expression flickered with something between gratitude and bitter resentment. The Emperor will not see it that way. Surrendering an Imperial facility to a single attacker will be viewed as cowardice or incompetence. My career is finished. Possibly my life as well once I'm returned to Imperial custody. "Then perhaps you should consider not returning to Imperial custody," Thor suggested. "I have learned that your empire is not generous to those it deems failures. The rebellion offers alternatives for those willing to share information about Imperial operations." "You're asking me to defect?" Varys looked genuinely shocked. "To betray the Empire. I'm suggesting that an empire which punishes pragmatic military decisions with execution might not deserve your loyalty," Thor replied. "But the choice is yours. For now, I require access to your weapon research and the scientist who contacted the Alliance." Varys nodded slowly, his world shifting beneath him. An hour ago, he'd been a loyal Imperial officer, commanding an important facility. Now he was a prisoner contemplating treason, and part of him wondered if Thor's suggestion might actually be wisdom rather than temptation. He led Thor into the facility, through corridors where stormtroopers stood at attention with expressions hidden behind helmets, but body language screaming confusion about what was happening. They reached the research level, where Imperial scientists worked on the superweapon that had justified this entire base's existence. The weapon itself was terrifying in its elegant simplicity, a massive kyber crystal mounted in focusing arrays that could channel energy on scales that dwarfed even Death Star super lasers. Not a planet killer, but something worse, a precision instrument capable of surgically destroying capital ships from across star systems, making traditional naval warfare obsolete. "Impressive," Thor admitted, studying the weapon with a warrior's appreciation for devastating firepower. "How many of these has the Empire constructed?" "This is the prototype," one of the scientists, a nervous human woman who had been working frantically to destroy data files when Thor entered, admitted. "The only one. If it's destroyed, the research is set back years. All our data is stored locally due to security protocols. If the facility goes, the weapon goes with it." "Then it will go," Thor said simply. He raised Mjolnir and brought it down on the kyber crystal. The impact shattered the crystal into fragments, each piece glowing with unstable energy. The focusing arrays sparked and died. Months or years of research, billions of credits of investment, a weapon that could have changed the balance of galactic power, all destroyed in a single hammer blow. The scientists stared in horror. Colonel Varys felt something that might have been relief. If the weapon had been completed, he would have been responsible for deploying it against rebel forces, adding more deaths to his conscience. "Where is the defector?" Thor asked. A middle-aged man with distinctive scars and intelligent eyes stepped forward. "I am Dr. Galen Urso. I designed much of this system, and I've been trying to sabotage it from within since I realized what they intended. Thank you for coming. The Alliance sent me because your information was deemed critical," Thor said. "But tell me, were there other options? Could you not have refused to build this weapon?" Urso's expression hardened. "They held my wife and daughter hostage to ensure my cooperation. I built the weapon they demanded, but I also built in a critical weakness that could destroy it if ever exploited. I've been waiting for a chance to share that information, to prevent this technology from being replicated elsewhere. The Empire will build more superweapons. I've seen the Death Star designs, but with the right intelligence, the Alliance can exploit their weaknesses." Thor studied the man, the Soul Stone's subtle influence allowing him to sense truth beneath words. Urso was genuine, a man who had done terrible things under coercion, who had compromised his principles to save his family, who now sought redemption through betrayal of his captors. "Then you will have that chance," Thor said. "Come, the rebel extraction team is waiting." They moved through the facility toward the designated extraction point, collecting 3 other scientists and 4 forced laborers who had been working under threat of execution. The Ghost had landed during Thor's assault, using the chaos to slip past defenses that had been focused entirely on the god attacking their front gate. Hera met them at the landing pad, blaster ready but unnecessary. "Nice work," Very subtle, very understated. I'm sure the Empire won't notice this at all. Subtlety was never my strength, Thor admitted with a slight smile. But the mission is accomplished. Weapon destroyed, defector extracted, minimal casualties. By most measures, this qualifies as success. By most measures, Hera agreed. Let's get out of here before the Empire sends reinforcements. They boarded the Ghost quickly, Erso and the other refugees cramming into the cargo hold, while Thor stood in the cockpit watching Idu's storms recede as they climbed toward orbit. Below, Colonel Varys was probably already composing his report, trying to frame the disaster in terms that might allow him to keep his commission, if not his career. Thor found himself hoping the man would choose defection. The Empire needed fewer loyal servants and more people willing to question whether their service actually served justice. As they jumped to hyperspace, Kanan approached Thor. That was probably the smoothest operation I've ever seen. You just walked up to an Imperial superweapon facility and convinced them to surrender. I gave them a choice, Thor corrected. Continue fighting and die pointlessly, or surrender and live. Most warriors, when given that choice honestly, will choose life. Most warriors aren't trained by the Empire, Kanan countered. Imperial doctrine emphasizes fighting to the last, accepting death before surrender. The fact that Varys chose differently is remarkable. Perhaps it indicates that your Empire's hold is not as absolute as they claim, Thor suggested. If even their military commanders can recognize when continued fighting serves no purpose, then perhaps there is hope for reforming this galaxy without destroying half its population. Back on Atollon, news of Thor's successful assault spread through the rebel base like wildfire. The god of thunder had just accomplished what would have required an entire fleet, destroyed an Imperial superweapon, extracted critical intelligence, and done so with minimal bloodshed. More than that, he'd proven the rebellion could strike at the Empire's most secured facilities and win. Mon Mothma watched the celebration from her command center, her expression thoughtful. He's changing the equation, she said to Bail Organa, not just through his power, but through what his victories represent. People are starting to believe we can actually win this war. Belief is powerful, Bail agreed, but it's also dangerous. What happens when Thor leaves? When he finds his way home and we're back to conventional warfare against overwhelming Imperial might? Will that belief collapse into despair? Perhaps, Mon Mothma admitted. Or perhaps he'll teach us enough before he leaves that we can continue winning without him. He's not just a weapon, Bail. He's proof that the impossible can be achieved. That's worth something, even if it's temporary. In orbit around Coruscant, Emperor Palpatine received Colonel Varys's report with cold fury. He had expected the Eodu facility to fall eventually. The moment Thor had entered the war, certain assets became untenable. But the manner of its fall, the ease with which this Asgardian had neutralized an entire garrison and convinced an Imperial officer to surrender, suggested a threat beyond mere military power. Thor Odinson was inspiring people. He was demonstrating that the Empire could be defied, that resistance was not futile, that a single being with sufficient conviction could challenge tyranny and win. That made him more dangerous than any weapon. Lord Vader, Palpatine's hologram, materialized in the meditation chamber where his apprentice had been studying recordings of Thor's combat style. The situation has escalated. This Thor must be dealt with, but conventional military force has proven inadequate. We need a different approach. What do you suggest, Master? Vader asked, his mechanical breathing steady despite the frustration he felt. He had fought Thor and lost. His pride demanded a rematch, but his tactical mind recognized that pure combat strength would not overcome Asgardian power. "Leverage," Palpatine said simply. "Every being has attachments, people they care about, weaknesses that can be exploited. This Thor has allied himself with rebel terrorists, that ghost crew and others. Apply pressure to them, force him to choose between his principles and their safety. Even gods can be made to break when the right pressure is applied to the right points." "You want me to target civilians to draw him out," Vader stated. It wasn't a question. He understood his master's methods perfectly. "I want you to teach this Thor that his actions have consequences," Palpatine corrected with oily smoothness. "That every Imperial facility he destroys, every victory he achieves, will result in reprisals against those he seeks to protect. Make him understand that his presence in this galaxy causes more suffering than it prevents. Break his spirit before we break his body." Vader considered the strategy. It was cruel, calculated, and perfectly suited to how the Empire maintained control, through fear and the threat of overwhelming retaliation against anyone who dared resist. Thor might be personally invulnerable, but those around him were not. "I will begin preparations," Vader said. "See that you do," Palpatine replied. "This Asgardian believes he can play hero in our galaxy. Teach him what happens to heroes who challenge the Empire. Teach him that hope is merely another weakness to be exploited." The hologram vanished, leaving Vader alone with plans forming in his mind. Terrible plans that would strike at everything Thor valued, forcing the God of Thunder to question whether his intervention was actually helping or simply painting targets on innocent backs. The war between Asgard and Empire had escalated beyond military engagement. Now it would become personal. The trap was sprung on a world called Jedha. Thor had been coordinating with rebel intelligence to identify Imperial facilities vulnerable to his unique capabilities when the distress call came through. Jedha City was under full Imperial occupation, and Vader himself was leading a purge of suspected rebel sympathizers. Civilians were being rounded up for questioning, which everyone understood meant torture and execution. The message was clear. This was retaliation for Eadu, punishment meant to demonstrate that defying the Empire carried consequences. "It's a trap," Kanan said immediately when they received the intelligence. "Vader is dangling innocent lives in front of you, knowing you'll respond. He wants you there, wants to engage you on his terms." "I know," Thor replied calmly. "But knowing it is a trap does not change the fact that innocent people are suffering. I cannot ignore that simply because responding is what my enemy desires." They were gathered in the Ghost's common area, the entire crew present as they debated the most dangerous decision they'd faced since Thor joined them. Jedha was holy to many believers in the Force, a desert moon whose ancient temples had drawn pilgrims for millennia. Vader choosing it for his retaliation was deliberately calculated to inflict maximum symbolic damage. "If you go, you're playing into his hands," Hera argued. "The Empire wants you focused on rescue operations instead of strategic targets. Every time you respond to these provocations, you're letting them dictate your actions." "And if I don't go," Thor challenged. "If I allow innocents to die because I'm too strategic to be manipulated, what does that make me? What does that make the rebellion?" "It makes us pragmatic," Sabine said quietly. "We can't save everyone, Thor. We've all had to make that choice. Let some suffer to save more later. It's horrible, but it's necessary. Thor stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at hyperspace's blue tunnel. On Asgard, we have a saying: a warrior who will not defend the helpless is no warrior at all, merely a thug with weapons. I understand strategic necessity. I have made terrible choices in service of greater good, but there must be limits. Lines we will not cross, even when crossing them would be tactically advantageous. Noble sentiment, Zeb rumbled, but Vader is counting on that nobility. He's using your honor as a weapon against you. Then let him, Thor said, turning back to face them, because the moment I stop caring about innocent lives for strategic advantage is the moment I become no better than the Empire we fight. Yes, this is a trap. Yes, Vader wants me there. But those people on Jedha didn't ask to become pawns in our conflict. They deserve protection regardless of the tactical complications. Ezra, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. What if we all go? Not just you, but all of us. If it's a trap for one warrior, maybe we can turn it into a battle they weren't expecting. No, Thor said immediately. Vader wants me specifically. Bringing all of you simply provides him more hostages to use against me. I will go alone. That's suicide, Kanan protested. Vader knows you're coming, knows your capabilities, has had time to prepare countermeasures. You might be a god, Thor, but you're not invincible. Perhaps not, Thor acknowledged, but I am far more difficult to kill than your Dark Lord realizes. And more importantly, I suspect this confrontation has been building since Lothal. Vader and I have unfinished business. Better to resolve it on terms I choose rather than let him continue striking at innocents to draw me out. Hera made a command decision. Fine, you go to Jedha, but we're coming too, staying in orbit as backup. If things go wrong, if you need extraction or support, we're there. Understood? Thor smiled, genuinely touched by their loyalty. Understood, Captain, though I hope it will not come to that. The journey to Jedha took 18 hours, time Thor spent in meditation, preparing himself not just physically but spiritually for what awaited. He could feel it through whatever senses allowed him to perceive such things. This battle would be different from their first encounter. Vader would be prepared, would have studied Thor's fighting style, would have devised counters to Asgardian power. Good. Thor had been doing the same, analyzing how the Force operated, understanding its strengths and limitations, recognizing patterns in how Vader fought. This would be a duel not just of power, but of adaptation. Each warrior testing the other's ability to overcome new challenges. Jedha appeared as a pale sphere orbited by star destroyers, more than had blockaded Lothal, positioned to prevent any escape rather than just contain. The message was clear. Vader had learned from their first encounter and wasn't taking chances. But even as Thor observed the Imperial fleet, he felt something else, a disturbance in the very fabric of this space, as if reality itself had been wounded here. Jedha City was partially destroyed weeks ago, Hera explained, reading Thor's expression. The Empire tested a super laser, a precursor to their Death Star project, killed hundreds of thousands to demonstrate their power. The survivors are still traumatized, still rebuilding, and now Vader is using them as bait. Thor's expression hardened. Then he will learn that some bait is too poisonous to swallow safely. He departed the ghost in Jedha's upper atmosphere, Mjolnir pulling him downward through thin air towards the ancient city below. Jedha City was built around a massive temple that had stood for millennia, its architecture blending stone and metal in ways that spoke of civilizations that had risen and fallen while the structure endured. Now that temple was surrounded by Imperial walkers, stormtrooper formations, and defensive positions clearly designed with Thor in mind. Vader stood at the temple's entrance, his black armor stark against ancient stone, his lightsaber already ignited. Beside him, the seventh sister and 3 other Inquisitors formed a support line, Force wielders who had been briefed on Thor's capabilities and instructed to exploit any opening he gave them. But what caught Thor's attention were the cages, dozens of them, arrayed around the temple plaza, each containing civilians from Jedha City, men, women, children of various species, all imprisoned and displayed as living shields. The message was brutally clear: attack Vader and innocents would be caught in the crossfire. Thor landed 50 meters from Vader, his boots cracking stone with the force of his arrival. Lightning crackled around his form, responding to his rising anger, but he kept it controlled, barely. "Vader!" Thor's voice carried across the plaza, amplified by Asgardian power until every being in the city could hear. "You use innocents as shields and call yourself a warrior. This is cowardice beneath even the basest tyrant." "This is strategy," Vader replied, his mechanical voice emotionless. "You came to Jedha to save these people. I am giving you the opportunity, if you can defeat me without harming them. But we both know what happens when beings of our power clash. The collateral damage is inevitable. Unless I surrender," Thor understood the implicit demand. "You want me to submit to capture to spare these innocents." "The Empire is prepared to offer terms," Vader confirmed. "Surrender yourself for interrogation about your abilities and origin. In exchange, these civilians go free, unharmed. You claim to fight for justice and protection of the helpless. Prove it." Thor studied the situation with a warrior's tactical assessment. Vader had positioned this perfectly: attack, and innocents died in the crossfire. Surrender, and the Empire gained a prisoner to study, dissect, and ultimately use as propaganda, showing that even gods could be brought low. Either outcome served the dark side's purposes, but Vader had made one critical miscalculation. "I accept your terms," Thor said. And before Vader could react to apparent victory, he continued, "With one modification. You and I will duel, here, now, with these people as witnesses. If you defeat me, I surrender for Imperial custody. But if I defeat you, these civilians go free and you withdraw all Imperial forces from Jedha for 1 standard year. The Empire leaves this world in peace." Vader's breathing filled the silence as he considered the counter-proposal. Palpatine's orders had been clear: capture or kill Thor, whatever it took. But the public challenge, issued in front of thousands of witnesses and probably being recorded by dozens of hidden devices, put his pride on the line. Refuse and appear cowardly before his troops and the galaxy. Accept and risk defeat. "You presume you can defeat me in fair combat," Vader said. "Our last encounter was interrupted before its conclusion." "Because your Emperor commanded retreat," Thor reminded him. "Not because you were winning. You know the truth, Vader. In pure combat, your force cannot overcome Asgardian might. But perhaps you have learned new techniques since our last meeting. Perhaps you have found ways to counter my lightning. There is only one way to know for certain." The seventh sister stepped forward. "Lord Vader, this is obviously a ploy. He wants to engage you in single combat where his physical advantages Are you suggesting your master lacks the skill to overcome those advantages? Thor interrupted, his tone carrying just enough mockery to sting. Or perhaps you fear he has already fought me once and learned his limitations. Vader's mechanical hand tightened on his lightsaber, and Thor felt the dark side surge around the Sith Lord, rage, pride, and determination mixing into violent intent. Good. Angry opponents made mistakes, fought emotionally rather than tactically. Very well, Vader said. Single combat, winner takes all. The Inquisitors will ensure no interference. And the civilians go free immediately, Thor added. Before we fight, I will not trust the Empire's word that they'll be released after. Vader gestured and stormtroopers began opening the cages. Confused civilians stumbled out, unsure whether this was genuine freedom or some new torture. Temple monks appeared to guide them to safety, their weathered faces showing shock at this unexpected reprieve. Your compassion will be your undoing, Vader observed. A warrior who fights for others fights with divided attention. And a warrior who fights only for power fights with nothing worth protecting, Thor countered. We shall see which philosophy prevails. The plaza cleared except for Thor and Vader, two warriors separated by 50 meters of ancient stone, surrounded by witnesses who understood they were about to observe something unprecedented, a Sith Lord facing a god in single combat, with an entire world's fate hanging in the balance. Vader struck first, using the Force to hurl massive stones from the temple's damaged sections toward Thor with velocity that would crush any normal being. Thor spun Mjolnir, shattering the projectiles mid-flight, stone fragments raining around him harmlessly. Then Vader was there, having used the distraction to close distance with Force-enhanced speed. His lightsaber struck in a gem, so power attack meant to overwhelm defenses through pure kinetic force. Thor caught the blade on Mjolnir's face and pushed back, Asgardian strength meeting Force-augmented power. For 3 seconds they stood locked, lightsaber against hammer, testing each other's raw power. Then Thor pivoted, redirecting Vader's force rather than meeting it directly, and delivered a hammer strike toward Vader's midsection that the Sith Lord barely managed to dodge. They separated and began circling, each having gained valuable information. Thor had confirmed Vader had indeed grown stronger since Lothal, his Force abilities more refined, his lightsaber technique sharper, and Vader had learned that Thor's combat instincts were even better than intelligence suggested. The Asgardian wasn't just strong, he was skilled. You have improved, Thor acknowledged. Someone has been training you. The Emperor teaches those who prove worthy of instruction, Vader replied. Your displays at Lothal and Adu convinced him you were a threat requiring specialized preparation. Specialized preparation? Thor's eyes began to glow with gathering power. Let us see how well you prepared for this. He raised Mjolnir toward the sky, and Jedha's thin atmosphere responded. Lightning fell from cloudless heavens, dozens of bolts converging on Vader's position with pinpoint accuracy. The Sith Lord raised both hands, catching the lightning with the Force, channeling it around his body and into the ground. But Thor had learned from their first encounter too. The lightning wasn't the real attack. It was preparation. While Vader focused on defending against electrical assault, Thor charged, closing the distance in milliseconds, Mjolnir swinging toward Vader's head with force sufficient to shatter blast doors. Vader released the lightning defense and caught Mjolnir with the Force, halting it centimeters from his helmet. For a moment, two types of power contested, Asgardian divine strength against Sith Force mastery, Uru metal vibrating with the strain of opposing forces. Then Vader twisted, redirecting Mjolnir's momentum past his head, and delivered a force push directly into Thor's chest. The god of thunder was thrown backward, crashing through temple columns that had stood for millennia. Stone exploded around him as he impacted, dust filling the air. For a moment, silence fell. Had Vader actually injured the seemingly invulnerable Asgardian? Thor emerged from the rubble completely unharmed, though his armor showed new scorch marks. He was smiling. "Well struck," Thor said genuinely. "You learn quickly, Vader, using my own momentum against me, striking while I was committed to the attack. That was clever." "I learned from every engagement," Vader replied. "And I learned from Lothal that matching your strength is futile. I must be faster, more adaptable, strike at vulnerabilities rather than contest your power directly." "Then this will be an interesting duel indeed," Thor said. "For I too have learned. Your force operates through concentration and will. Disrupt that concentration and your techniques fail. And unlike conventional opponents, I have means to disrupt that you've never faced." Thor slammed Mjolnir into the ground, and the shockwave that erupted wasn't just kinetic force, it was mixed with Asgardian magic, a pulse of power that existed adjacent to the Force rather than within it. Vader felt his connection to the Force waver, not severed but disrupted, as if static had filled a communication channel. In that moment of disruption, Thor attacked with pure physical speed and power. Mjolnir struck Vader's lightsaber from his hand, then swung toward his chest. Vader managed to dodge, barely, the hammer passing so close it tore cape fabric. He summoned his lightsaber back through the Force, his connection re-establishing, but he'd learned something crucial. Thor could interfere with Force usage through means Vader didn't understand. They fought for 20 minutes by the temple's ancient chronometer, each warrior pushing the other, adapting to counters, developing new strategies mid-combat. Thor's lightning was met with Force barriers. Vader's telekinesis was countered with Asgardian resilience. Lightsaber met hammer in exchanges so fast that observers could barely track them. The watching Inquisitors grew nervous. They'd expected Lord Vader to dominate, to prove Imperial superiority over this alien god. Instead, they were witnessing something unprecedented. Their master, the most feared warrior in the galaxy, fighting at his absolute limit just to match Thor blow for blow. Eventually, inevitably, the duel reached its crisis point. Vader attempted a Force choke, the technique he'd used to kill countless opponents, crushing their throats through telekinetic pressure. Thor felt the Force close around his neck, trying to cut off air, and simply flexed. Asgardian physiology, reinforced by divine nature, was too resilient. The Force couldn't generate sufficient pressure to harm him. In the instant Vader realized his technique had failed, Thor struck with everything he had. Lightning, hammer blow, and raw physical force combined in a devastating attack that shattered Vader's defenses. The Sith Lord was thrown through the temple entrance, his armor cracked, his systems sparking, his mechanical breathing stuttering. Thor advanced slowly, Mjolnir ready for a finishing strike. He stood over the fallen Dark Lord, and in that moment he could end it. Kill Vader, eliminate the Empire's greatest enforcer, strike a blow the rebellion might never achieve through conventional warfare. But Thor had learned something during the fight, something his developing sensitivity to the Force had revealed. Beneath Vader's armor, beneath the dark side corruption, there was still a spark of light, buried, tortured, barely alive, but present. "Yield," Thor said quietly. "The duel is over. I have won." Vader's breathing rasped through damaged systems. "Kill me. A Sith does not surrender." "Perhaps," Thor replied, "but Anakin Skywalker might." The name struck like a physical blow. Vader went rigid, his mechanical breathing stopping entirely for 3 seconds before resuming erratically. "That name means nothing," he said, but his voice carried less certainty than before. "It means everything," Thor countered. "I told you once that there was still conflict within you. I sense it now more clearly than ever. The man you were fighting, the monster you've become. That man would want to protect these people, would want to stop serving a tyrant who uses innocents as pawns. That man would want to choose differently." "Anakin Skywalker is dead," Vader insisted, but it sounded like a mantra repeated to convince himself rather than a statement of fact. "Then prove it," Thor challenged. "If Anakin is truly dead, if there's nothing left worth saving, then get up and continue fighting. I will defend myself, and this time I will not hold back. But if any part of you wants to be more than the Emperor's weapon, if any fragment of the Jedi you once were still exists, then yield. Honor our agreement. Let these people live in peace." The plaza was silent except for Vader's mechanical breathing. Every being present understood. They were witnessing not just the conclusion of a duel, but a moment where the galaxy's fate balanced on a fallen Sith Lord's choice. Slowly, painfully, Vader stood. His damaged systems protested, his armor sparking, but he rose. For a terrible moment, Thor thought he would resume fighting, that pride would overcome everything else. Then Vader deactivated his lightsaber. "I yield," he said, the words clearly tasting like poison. "The duel is yours. The terms are accepted." Thor lowered Mjolnir, though he remained ready. "You will withdraw all Imperial forces from Jedha for 1 year?" "I will." Vader turned to face the Inquisitors and stormtroopers who had witnessed everything. "All Imperial forces withdraw to orbit immediately. Jedha is granted 1 standard year of autonomy, per the terms of combat. Anyone who questions this order answers to me." The Imperials hesitated for exactly 2 seconds before obeying. They'd seen their invincible commander defeated, seen him yield, and understood that questioning such an order would be fatal. Within minutes, Imperial forces began lifting off, retreating from the ancient city they'd occupied. Thor and Vader stood alone in the plaza, surrounded by freed civilians who couldn't quite believe what they'd witnessed. "This changes nothing," Vader said. "I am still the Emperor's servant. You are still a threat to Imperial stability. When we meet again, I will be prepared for everything you showed me today." "Perhaps," Thor acknowledged. "But you made a choice today, Vader. You honored a warrior's agreement despite what your master might prefer. You chose to let these people live when you could have continued fighting. That choice, however small, proves that Anakin Skywalker is not as dead as you claim." Vader's mechanical breathing was his only response. Then he turned and walked toward his waiting shuttle, his cape billowing in Jedha's thin wind. At the shuttle's ramp, he paused. "The Emperor will send others," Vader said without turning. "I bought you Jedha for 1 year, but he will not rest until you are captured or eliminated. You have made an enemy of the most powerful being in the galaxy, Thor Odinson. I hope your Asgardian power is sufficient for what comes next." "So do I," Thor said quietly. The shuttle lifted off, and within hours, All Imperial forces had departed Jedha. The civilians emerged from hiding, hardly daring to believe they were truly free. The temple monks offered prayers to the Force, thanking it for sending a champion when all hope seemed lost. The Ghost landed in the plaza, and Thor's crew emerged looking equal parts relieved and amazed. "You actually did it," Hera said. "You beat Vader in single combat and forced him to honor the terms. I don't even have words for what that is." "It is a beginning," Thor said. "Not victory, but proof that the Empire can be challenged and forced to retreat. That alone is worth the risk." "What did you say to him at the end?" Ezra asked. "I saw you talking after the fight." Thor smiled slightly. "I reminded him that he was once a hero before he became a monster. Whether he believes it or not, the seed is planted. Sometimes that's all you can do, plant seeds and hope they grow into something better." As they departed Jedha, Thor looked back at the ancient city one final time. He'd won a battle, saved thousands of lives, and perhaps, just perhaps, reminded a fallen Jedi that redemption was possible, even for those who thought themselves beyond saving. But Vader's warning echoed in his mind. The Emperor would not forgive this defiance. More challenges would come, greater than anything Thor had faced so far. The God of Thunder prepared himself for the storm ahead, knowing that the greatest battles were still to come. 6 months after Thor's arrival in the Star Wars galaxy, the conflict had transformed in ways neither Empire nor Rebellion had anticipated. The Rebellion's operational capacity had increased dramatically. Thor's coordinated assaults on Imperial facilities, combined with conventional rebel operations exploiting the chaos, had liberated 17 star systems and destroyed enough military infrastructure to delay Imperial expansion by years. More critically, recruitment had surged across the galaxy as beings who had considered resistance suicidal suddenly saw evidence that the Empire could be challenged and beaten. The coalition of Force sensitives established on Elphrona had grown to 43 members, representing traditions from across the galaxy's history. They called themselves the Covenant of the Free Force, not Jedi, not Sith, but something unprecedented. Under Thor's protection and Kanan's guidance, they were rediscovering Force techniques the Jedi Order had suppressed as too dangerous, developing new applications that blended multiple traditions, and most importantly, proving that the Force could serve freedom without requiring adherence to rigid dogma. But the Empire had adapted as well. Emperor Palpatine, recognizing that conventional military force was insufficient against Thor, had begun developing weapons specifically designed to counter Asgardian capabilities. Research facilities across Imperial space worked on projects that would harness the dark side itself as weaponry, on technology that could disrupt the energy signatures Thor radiated, on contingency plans that made even Darth Vader uneasy. And Vader himself had become something unexpected, not an ally, but no longer purely an enemy either. Since Jedha, he had executed his duties with typical Imperial efficiency, but had begun making subtle choices that suggested Thor's words had found deeper purchase than anyone realized. Prisoners who should have been executed were instead imprisoned. Planets that should have been destroyed received subjugation instead. Small mercies that meant little individually but collectively suggested internal conflict. Thor noticed. So did the Emperor. The consequences of that awareness were yet to unfold. On Atollon, Thor stood with the Ghost crew, watching sunset paint the sky in colors that reminded him painfully of Asgard's eternal twilight. He'd been searching for a way home for months, consulting with every scholar, mystic, and scientists the rebellion could locate. None had answers. The Bifrost couldn't reach across dimensional barriers. The technology that had brought him here had been a one-time catastrophic failure, irreplicable without risking further damage to reality itself. "You're thinking about home," Hera said, joining him at the viewport. It wasn't a question. "Always," Thor admitted. "My father, my friends, my realm. They must believe me dead or lost. They may be searching, spending resources and risking lives to find someone who cannot be found. That knowledge weighs on me." "But you can't leave," Hera observed. "Not yet. Not while the fight here needs you." "Can't or won't?" Thor smiled slightly. "I tell myself it's the former, that I remain because I have no choice, no means of departure. But perhaps it's the latter. Perhaps I stay because I've found purpose here, a war that matters, people worth protecting. Perhaps I fear that if I find a way home, I'll be forced to choose between duty to Asgard and commitment to this rebellion." "Would that be such a terrible choice?" Hera asked gently. "Yes," Thor said quietly, "because either way I abandon people I've sworn to protect. Either I leave this galaxy to face the Empire without me, or I abandon my realm's needs to continue fighting in a conflict that isn't truly mine. There is no choice that doesn't betray someone." Ezra had been listening from nearby, his force sensitivity making subtlety difficult. "You taught us that partial victories matter more than total ones. Maybe this is like that. You can't save everyone, but you can save who you can save, when you can save them. And right now, that's us." Thor looked at the young man who had grown so much in 6 months, from a street thief with raw force potential to a warrior who had stood against the Inquisitorius and survived. "When did you become so wise?" "Probably around the time a god from another universe decided we were worth fighting for," Ezra replied with a grin. The moment was interrupted by Admiral Akbar's emergency transmission. "All personnel report to Command Center immediately. We've received intelligence suggesting imminent Imperial offensive against Atollon. Multiple Star Destroyer groups converging on our position. Estimated arrival, 6 hours." Thor's expression shifted from contemplative to combat-ready in an instant. "How many ships?" "Preliminary reports suggest over 40 capital ships," Akbar replied grimly. "The largest Imperial fleet movement we've ever tracked. They're coming for us, Thor. They're coming for all of us." In orbit around Coruscant, Emperor Palpatine observed the fleet's departure with cold satisfaction. He'd spent 6 months preparing this operation, studying Thor's capabilities, analyzing his tactics, identifying patterns in how he fought. The assault on Atollon wouldn't rely on defeating Thor through direct combat. That had proven impossible. Instead, it would force him to make the choice he'd been avoiding: protect the rebel base and exhaust himself, defending against overwhelming numbers, or abandon the rebellion to save his strength. Either way, the Empire won, either by capturing a depleted Thor or by demonstrating to the galaxy that even gods would abandon their allies when the cost grew too high. "This will break him," Palpatine told Vader, who stood in the shadows of the throne room, not through violence but through forcing him to recognize the futility of his resistance. He cannot save everyone, he cannot be everywhere, and when he fails, when beings die despite his intervention, the rebellion's hope will shatter. "Perhaps," Vader replied, his mechanical breathing echoing in the chamber. "Or perhaps you underestimate him, as we have before. Thor Odinson has proven remarkably resilient in ways we didn't anticipate." Palpatine's eyes narrowed. "You sound almost admiring, my apprentice." "I sound realistic, Master. We have underestimated this Asgardian repeatedly, and each underestimation cost us resources and credibility. I merely suggest caution." "Noted," Palpatine said, "but unnecessary. This time, we have prepared properly. This time Thor will learn what happens when gods challenge empires built on millennia of Sith planning." On Atollon, as the Rebel Alliance scrambled to prepare for the largest battle of the war, Thor stood with Mjolnir in hand and lightning beginning to gather in the sky above. Around him, the Force users of the Covenant prepared their abilities. Rebel soldiers manned defensive positions. Starfighters launched for combat space patrol. "We've faced impossible odds before," Mon Mothma announced over base-wide communications. "We've survived through courage, ingenuity, and the knowledge that our cause is just. Today will test us as never before, but we do not stand alone. We stand with Thor of Asgard, and together we will show the Empire that tyranny can be resisted." Thor listened to the speech and felt the weight of responsibility settle across his shoulders like a familiar cloak. These people had come to depend on him, to believe in him, to trust that his power could overcome even the Empire's might. And perhaps it could, but at what cost? How many would die in the battle to come? How long could he sustain combat against 40 capital ships? What would happen if he failed? "Doubt is creeping in," Kanan observed, sensing Thor's mood through the Force. "That's new for you." "I'm not invincible," Thor admitted. "I've faced defeats before, seen people I swore to protect die because I wasn't strong enough, or fast enough, or clever enough. I fear I'm about to fail again. And this time an entire rebel base will pay the price." "Then don't fail," Ezra said simply. "You're the god of thunder. Act like it." The simple faith in the young man's voice struck Thor deeply. This was what he'd given the rebellion, not just military capability, but genuine belief that victory was possible. To doubt himself now would betray that faith more certainly than any defeat in combat. "You're right," Thor said, his voice strengthening. "I am Thor Odinson, son of Odin, protector of 9 realms, and now this galaxy as well. The Empire sends 40 ships to crush us. Let them come. We will show them what happens when tyranny faces the storm." Lightning erupted across Atollon's sky as Thor raised Mjolnir toward the stars. Around him, Force users tapped into the light side and even carefully controlled dark side energies. Rebel soldiers checked weapons and steeled themselves for battle, and somewhere in orbit, 40 Imperial star destroyers dropped out of hyperspace to begin what the Emperor intended as the rebellion's final stand. But as Thor stood ready to defend another world in a galaxy not his own, surrounded by allies who had become friends and a cause that had become his own, he realized something profound. Whether he ever found his way back to Asgard or not, this fight mattered. These people mattered, and he would stand with them against any darkness, face any odds, endure any hardship, because that was what heroes did. The battle for Atollon was about to begin, and its outcome would determine not just the rebellion's survival, but whether the galaxy still believed that hope could triumph over despair. Thor smiled, lightning dancing around his form, Mjolnir eager in his hand. Let the Empire come. Let them bring their fleets and their weapons, and their conviction that tyranny was inevitable. The God of Thunder would teach them otherwise. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, beings watched holographic transmissions of the gathering storm. The Empire had committed to crushing the rebellion decisively. Thor Odinson stood ready to defend them against impossible odds. And everyone understood that what happened next would reshape the galactic civil war's trajectory forever. The storm clouds gathered, the thunder rolled, and Thor of Asgard prepared to show the Empire what divine fury truly meant. Not just power, but power wielded for justice, for protection, for everything a warrior's strength should serve. The greatest battle was yet to come, but Thor Odinson faced it not with fear, but with determination born from knowing that some causes were worth any sacrifice. The galaxy would remember this day, the day the God of Thunder stood against an empire and refused to yield. Emperor Palpatine's rage was a living thing, a tempest of dark side energy that radiated from his throne room on Imperial Center, making even his most loyal servants flinch as they delivered reports about the disaster on Jedha. Vader had been defeated publicly, and worse, he had honored the terms of defeat, withdrawing Imperial forces and granting a rebel-sympathetic world a full year of autonomy. It was humiliation on a scale the Empire had never experienced. "Bring him to me," Palpatine commanded, his voice deceptively soft, the kind of soft that preceded executions and systematic purges. "Lord Vader will explain his failure personally." But when Vader arrived at the throne room 3 days later, his armor repaired and his systems restored, Palpatine said nothing about punishment. Instead, he studied his apprentice with calculating yellow eyes that had witnessed millennia of Sith history and understood what this defeat truly meant. "You fought well," Palpatine said finally. "The recordings show a duel that would have impressed even the ancient Sith lords. This Thor is precisely as dangerous as we feared, perhaps more so." Vader remained silent, uncertain whether this was genuine assessment or prelude to torture disguised as conversation. "But you made a critical error," Palpatine continued, his voice hardening. "You allowed sentiment to influence your decision. You could have continued fighting, could have forced him to kill you or risk civilian casualties. Instead, you yielded. You honored an agreement made under duress. Tell me, my apprentice, why?" The question hung in the throne room like a blade. Vader knew the truth. Thor's words had reached something buried deep, some fragment of Anakin Skywalker that recognized honor when confronted with it. But admitting that to Palpatine would be admitting weakness, admitting the very thing that could destroy him. "Tactical calculation," Vader said, the lie coming smoothly through mechanical voice box. "Continued combat would have resulted in my death or permanent disability. By yielding and honoring the terms, I preserved Imperial assets, myself, the Inquisitors, the Star Destroyers, for future operations. Jedha is one world. The Empire spans thousands. The exchange was strategically sound." Palpatine's eyes narrowed, and Vader felt the Emperor's presence probe his mind, not forcefully, but with the subtle skill of a Sith master who had spent decades perfecting mental manipulation. Vader defended instinctively, raising barriers that kept his deepest thoughts hidden, even as he allowed surface-level access that supported his stated reasoning. After a moment that felt eternal, Palpatine leaned back. "Perhaps this Thor is more dangerous than we realized, not because of his strength, but because he reminds you of what you once were. A Jedi, a hero, someone who believed power should serve justice rather than domination. Those beliefs died with Anakin Skywalker," Vader stated flatly. "Did they?" Palpatine's smile was cold. "We shall see. I am reassigning you from direct pursuit of Thor. Your history with him compromises your effectiveness. The Grand Inquisitor will take primary responsibility for countering this Asgardian threat. Vader's mechanical breathing hitched slightly, the closest he could come to showing surprise. Being removed from a priority assignment was unprecedented, but more than that, it suggested Palpatine genuinely believed Vader was compromised, that Thor's words had found purchase. Perhaps they had. "As you command, Master," Vader said, because there was no other response possible. Back on Atollon, Thor stood before the Rebel Alliance leadership and delivered his assessment of the Empire's capabilities, Vader's strengths and vulnerabilities, and the strategic implications of the Jedha victory. But he also delivered warnings about what would come next. "The Emperor will not forgive this defeat," Thor said. The assembled commanders hanging on his every word. He will deploy new tactics, target different vulnerabilities, attempt to isolate me from those I seek to protect. Your rebellion has gained a symbolic victory, but it comes with costs. The Empire now views you as my allies, which makes you targets for retaliation. "We were already targets," Mon Mothma replied pragmatically, "but your point is taken. How do we capitalize on this victory while preparing for escalation?" Admiral Akbar had been studying tactical data throughout Thor's report. "The Grand Inquisitor is being deployed with 3 Inquisitorious Star Destroyers to hunt Force sensitives who might ally with Thor. They're trying to prevent you from coordinating with other powerful beings." "Let them try," Thor said. "I did not come to this galaxy seeking other champions to fight beside, but if the Empire forces coordination by targeting potential allies, then perhaps such alliances should be formalized. Are there Force wielders in your alliance who could benefit from my protection?" Kanan shifted uncomfortably. "There are some scattered survivors of Order 66, Force sensitives who never completed Jedi training, even a few who practice Force traditions outside Jedi or Sith philosophy. But bringing them together creates a concentrated target. The Empire would love to eliminate multiple Force users in a single strike. Unless that concentrated target includes someone the Empire cannot eliminate," Thor countered. "Gather these Force wielders. I will ensure their protection while we determine how best to coordinate our abilities against Imperial aggression." Bail Organa leaned forward, his diplomatic instincts recognizing opportunity. "You're proposing to establish a new Force-wielding organization under Rebel protection. That's ambitious. The Jedi Order took millennia to develop its structure and philosophy. You're suggesting we replicate that in months?" "I'm suggesting we create something different," Thor corrected. "Not a new Jedi Order bound by dogmatic restrictions, but a coalition of Force users who maintain their individual philosophies while coordinating against common threats. A fellowship rather than an institution." "The Jedi tried that once," Kanan said quietly. "Before the Clone Wars, there were movements to reform the Order, to allow more flexibility in Force philosophy. The Sith exploited those divisions to destroy us. Then we learned from those failures," Thor replied. "I have experience with such coalitions. The Avengers were precisely that. Warriors with different powers, different philosophies, different methods, who came together when threats arose that required coordination. We didn't always agree. We sometimes fought among ourselves. But when it mattered, we stood together. The concept resonated. The rebellion itself was a coalition of disparate groups bound by shared opposition to the Empire. Applying similar principles to Force users made strategic sense. even if it violated Jedi traditions about maintaining unified doctrine. "I'll reach out to contacts," Kanan said slowly. "See who might be willing to meet under your protection." But Thor, these are people who've been hunted for years. They're paranoid, scattered, and many have turned to darkness just to survive. Bringing them together could create more problems than solutions. Or it could create a force the Empire cannot counter, Thor replied. "Time will tell, but we must try. Sitting idle while the Empire consolidates power simply guarantees eventual defeat." The meeting continued for hours, planning operations, coordinating resources, debating strategies. But beneath the tactical discussions, everyone present understood that Thor's victory on Jedha had fundamentally changed the galactic civil war's nature. The rebellion was no longer just a scattered resistance. It was a legitimate military force with a champion who had proven he could face the Empire's greatest warrior and win. Word spread across the galaxy with remarkable speed. Holo news networks, those not under complete Imperial control, broadcast footage of Thor's duel with Vader. Underground information networks shared recordings of the God of Thunder facing down an Imperial blockade alone. Rebel recruitment surged as beings who had considered the fight hopeless suddenly saw reason to believe victory was possible. And in hidden corners across 1,000 worlds, Force sensitives who had been living in terrified isolation began to hear whispers. There was a warrior who could protect them, a being of power beyond the Sith's reach, someone who offered sanctuary from the Inquisitorius's endless hunt. They began to reach out. 3 weeks after Jedha, Thor stood on a remote moon called Elfrona, surrounded by 15 Force users who represented the scattered remnants of non-Imperial Force traditions. Some were former Jedi who had escaped Order 66. Others were self-taught sensitives who had developed powers without formal training. A few practiced ancient traditions that predated the Jedi Order entirely. Force philosophies the Jedi had long dismissed as heretical. "I am not here to lead you," Thor told them, Mjolnir resting at his side as lightning played gently in the clouded sky above. "I am not a Force user and cannot teach your traditions, but I am here to protect you while you determine how to coordinate against the Empire's aggression. The Inquisitorius hunts you individually. Together with my protection, you become a force they cannot easily eliminate." An elderly Zabrak woman who had survived the Sith Wars decades ago spoke up. "The Jedi tried to unify Force philosophy. It led to dogmatism and blindness. They couldn't recognize the Sith growing in their own Senate. Why should we trust another attempt at coordination?" "Because I'm not asking for unified philosophy," Thor replied. "Keep your traditions, your practices, your individual approaches to the Force, but share intelligence about Inquisitor movements. Coordinate defensive operations. Provide mutual support when one of you is targeted. You don't need to agree on Force doctrine to recognize that the Empire hunts you all." A young human woman, barely older than Ezra, raised her hand tentatively. "But the Empire is so powerful. Even together, even with your protection, how can we actually fight back? They have infinite resources, endless troops, the Emperor himself." Thor smiled. "I come from a realm where we faced similar questions. Earth, Midgard, was threatened by an alien invasion force that possessed technology far beyond human capability, yet Earth's heroes stood against them and won. Do you know how?" He looked at each Force-sensitive present. They refused to accept defeat. They leveraged their unique abilities creatively. They protected each other, and they trusted that courage and determination could overcome even overwhelming odds. You possess similar potential. The Force gives you abilities the Empire's soldiers cannot match. Use those abilities wisely, work together, and you become more than the sum of your parts. Kanan, who had been observing silently, stepped forward. I was trained as a Jedi. I believe in their core principles, protecting the innocent, serving justice, maintaining peace. But I've learned that survival sometimes requires flexibility the old order would have rejected. Thor offers us a chance to be something new, not Jedi, not Sith, but Force users who serve the light without binding ourselves to ancient restrictions that made us vulnerable. The gathering debated for hours. Some left, unwilling to risk exposure even with Thor's protection, but most stayed, recognizing that isolation was slowly killing them, either through Inquisitor hunts or through the spiritual starvation of having no one who understood their connection to the Force. By sunset on Elphrona, a fragile coalition had formed. They had no name, no formal structure, no unified doctrine. But they had commitment to share intelligence, coordinate defensive operations, and provide mutual support against Imperial aggression. And they had Thor Odinson's promise that anyone who hunted them would face Asgardian fury. The Grand Inquisitor learned of the gathering through his network of spies and informants. He studied the intelligence with cold calculation, recognizing both threat and opportunity. Thor had gathered Force sensitives into a concentrated target, precisely what the Inquisitorius had been trying to achieve for years. One decisive strike could eliminate multiple threats simultaneously. He requested reinforcements and began planning an assault that would demonstrate the futility of resisting the Empire, even with a god's protection. But the Grand Inquisitor had made a critical error in his calculations. He had studied Thor's combat capabilities, his strength and lightning, his near invulnerability and tactical skill. What he had not properly assessed was the God of Thunder's capacity for inspiration, his ability to transform scattered individuals into coordinated forces that exceeded their component capabilities. The Force sensitives of Elphrona had been hiding, surviving, slowly dying in isolation. Thor's arrival gave them something they'd lacked for years: hope. And hope, as Palpatine understood, but his servants often forgot, was the most dangerous weapon the rebellion possessed. When the Inquisitorius strike force arrived at Elphrona 3 weeks later, expecting to face a disorganized group of Force users protected by a single powerful warrior, they discovered something far more formidable. The Force sensitives had been training together, sharing techniques, developing coordinated tactics that leveraged their diverse abilities. And Thor had been teaching them something the Jedi had often neglected: strategic defense and tactical coordination. The battle that followed would become known as the Elphrona Stand, a 6-hour engagement where 15 Force users and 1 Asgardian held off an Inquisitorius assault force and forced them to withdraw, not because they were individually stronger than their attackers, but because they fought as a unified force, each protecting the other's weaknesses while leveraging their unique strengths. Thor stood at the battle's center, Mjolnir deflecting blaster fire and lightning striking down assault craft, while around him Force users employed every technique their diverse traditions had developed. Jedi defensive forms mixed with Dathomirian Force lightning, ancient Jedi mind tricks combined with aggressive Sith-inspired attacks. Techniques that should have been incompatible somehow worked in concert as if the Force itself approved of this unprecedented coordination. When the Grand Inquisitor finally ordered retreat, his forces decimated, his confidence shattered. He transmitted a report to Emperor Palpatine that echoed Vader's warnings. Thor Odinson was not just powerful, he was transformative. He didn't just fight battles, he changed the fundamental nature of conflicts he entered. He turned scattered individuals into unified forces, inspired hopeless causes to attempt the impossible, and demonstrated through action that the Empire's superiority was not inevitable. This Asgardian is teaching them to believe they can win. The Grand Inquisitor's report concluded, that is more dangerous than any weapon. On Elfrona, as the Force-sensitives celebrated their first true victory in years, Thor looked up at the stars and thought about home. Asgard felt impossibly distant, not just in space, but in reality itself. He'd been in this galaxy for months now, fighting its wars, protecting its people, becoming entangled in conflicts that should have had nothing to do with him. Yet he couldn't bring himself to regret it. These people needed protection, the Empire needed opposition, and Thor had never been able to turn away from such clear-cut tyranny, even when doing so would have been strategically wiser. "Do you think we can actually win?" Ezra asked, approaching Thor on the battlefield's edge. The young Force-sensitive had fought bravely during the assault, his developing powers proving more formidable than anyone had expected. "Win?" Thor considered the question carefully. "That depends on what you define as victory. If you mean destroying the Empire completely, eliminating every Star Destroyer and converting every Imperial citizen to your cause, probably not. But if you mean forcing the Empire to recognize limits to its power, protecting enough worlds to preserve freedom's possibility, creating spaces where beings can choose their own path, yes, that kind of victory is achievable. That doesn't sound as satisfying as total victory," Ezra said honestly. "True victory rarely is," Thor replied. "I have fought in wars across 9 realms. I have seen total victories that required such terrible costs they felt like defeats, and I have seen partial victories that preserved hope for better futures. The latter, I have learned, often matter more than the former." He placed a hand on Ezra's shoulder, gentle despite Asgardian strength. "You are young, but you fight with remarkable courage. Continue developing your abilities, learning from those who can teach you, and never lose sight of why you fight. Power without purpose is merely chaos, but power wielded for justice, that can change galaxies." Ezra nodded, absorbing the lesson. Around them, the Force users of Elfrona began repairs and tended wounded, their spirits higher than they'd been in years. They had proven that resistance was possible, that coordination worked, that the Inquisitorius could be beaten. The message would spread across the galaxy. The rebels had a new champion, one who not only defeated Imperial forces, but taught others to stand against tyranny. The Emperor's grip on power was no longer absolute. Cracks were forming in the edifice of control that Palpatine had spent decades constructing, and Thor Odinson, god of thunder and reluctant hero of the Galactic Civil War, prepared himself for the greater battles he knew would come. The Empire would escalate. Palpatine would deploy new weapons, new strategies, new horrors designed to break the rebellion spirit. But for the first time in years, the rebellion had something to counter Imperial might. Genuine hope, backed by proven capability, embodied in a warrior who refused to accept defeat, even when facing overwhelming odds. The storm was far from over. If anything, it was just beginning. But now, at least, the rebellion had lightning of their own. 6 months after Thor's arrival in the Star Wars galaxy, the conflict had transformed in ways neither Empire nor Rebellion had anticipated. The Rebellion's operational capacity had increased dramatically. Thor's coordinated assaults on Imperial facilities, combined with conventional rebel operations exploiting the chaos, had liberated 17 star systems and destroyed enough military infrastructure to delay Imperial expansion by years. More critically, recruitment had surged across the galaxy as beings who had considered resistance suicidal suddenly saw evidence that the Empire could be challenged and beaten. The coalition of Force sensitives established on Elphrona had grown to 43 members, representing traditions from across the galaxy's history. They called themselves the Covenant of the Free Force, not Jedi, not Sith, but something unprecedented. Under Thor's protection and Kanan's guidance, they were rediscovering Force techniques the Jedi Order had suppressed as too dangerous, developing new applications that blended multiple traditions, and most importantly, proving that the Force could serve freedom without requiring adherence to rigid dogma. But the Empire had adapted as well. Emperor Palpatine, recognizing that conventional military force was insufficient against Thor, had begun developing weapons specifically designed to counter Asgardian capabilities. Research facilities across Imperial space worked on projects that would harness the dark side itself as weaponry, on technology that could disrupt the energy signatures Thor radiated, on contingency plans that made even Darth Vader uneasy. And Vader himself had become something unexpected, not an ally, but no longer purely an enemy either. Since Jedha, he had executed his duties with typical Imperial efficiency, but had begun making subtle choices that suggested Thor's words had found deeper purchase than anyone realized. Prisoners who should have been executed were instead imprisoned. Planets that should have been destroyed received subjugation instead. Small mercies that meant little individually but collectively suggested internal conflict. Thor noticed. So did the Emperor. The consequences of that awareness were yet to unfold. On Atollon, Thor stood with the Ghost Crew, watching sunset paint the sky in colors that reminded him painfully of Asgard's eternal twilight. He'd been searching for a way home for months, consulting with every scholar, mystic, and scientist the rebellion could locate. None had answers. The Bifrost couldn't reach across dimensional barriers. The technology that had brought him here had been a one-time catastrophic failure, irreplicable without risking further damage to reality itself. "You're thinking about home," Hera said, joining him at the viewport. It wasn't a question. "Always," Thor admitted. "My father, my friends, my realm. They must believe me dead or lost. They may be searching, spending resources and risking lives to find someone who cannot be found. That knowledge weighs on me." "But you can't leave," Hera observed. "Not yet. Not while the fight here needs you." "Can't or won't?" Thor smiled slightly. "I tell myself it's the former, that I remain because I have no choice, no means of departure. But perhaps it's the latter. Perhaps I stay because I've found purpose here, a war that matters, people worth protecting. Perhaps I fear that if I find a way home, I'll be forced to choose between duty to Asgard and commitment to this rebellion." "Would that be such a terrible choice?" Hera asked gently. "Yes," Thor said quietly, "because either way I abandon people I've sworn to protect. Either I leave this galaxy to face the Empire without me, or I abandon my realm's needs to continue fighting in a conflict that isn't truly mine." There is no choice that doesn't betray someone. Ezra had been listening from nearby, his force sensitivity making subtlety difficult. You taught us that partial victories matter more than total ones. Maybe this is like that. You can't save everyone, but you can save who you can save, when you can save them. And right now, that's us. Thor looked at the young man who had grown so much in 6 months, from a street thief with raw force potential to a warrior who had stood against the Inquisitorius and survived. When did you become so wise? Probably around the time a god from another universe decided we were worth fighting for. Ezra replied with a grin. The moment was interrupted by Admiral Akbar's emergency transmission. All personnel report to Command Center immediately. We've received intelligence suggesting imminent Imperial offensive against Atollon. Multiple Star Destroyer groups converging on our position. Estimated arrival, 6 hours. Thor's expression shifted from contemplative to combat ready in an instant. How many ships? Preliminary reports suggest over 40 capital ships, Akbar replied grimly. The largest Imperial fleet movement we've ever tracked. They're coming for us, Thor. They're coming for all of us. In orbit around Coruscant, Emperor Palpatine observed the fleet's departure with cold satisfaction. He'd spent 6 months preparing this operation, studying Thor's capabilities, analyzing his tactics, identifying patterns in how he fought. The assault on Atollon wouldn't rely on defeating Thor through direct combat. That had proven impossible. Instead, it would force him to make the choice he'd been avoiding, protect the rebel base and exhaust himself, defending against overwhelming numbers, or abandon the rebellion to save his strength. Either way, the Empire won, either by capturing a depleted Thor or by demonstrating to the galaxy that even gods would abandon their allies when the cost grew too high. This will break him, Palpatine told Vader, who stood in the shadows of the throne room, not through violence but through forcing him to recognize the futility of his resistance. He cannot save everyone, he cannot be everywhere, and when he fails, when beings die despite his intervention, the rebellion's hope will shatter. Perhaps, Vader replied, his mechanical breathing echoing in the chamber. Or perhaps you underestimate him, as we have before. Thor Odinson has proven remarkably resilient in ways we didn't anticipate. Palpatine's eyes narrowed. You sound almost admiring my apprentice. I sound realistic, Master. We have underestimated this Asgardian repeatedly, and each underestimation cost us resources and credibility. I merely suggest caution. Noted, Palpatine said, but unnecessary. This time, we have prepared properly. This time Thor will learn what happens when gods challenge empires built on millennia of Sith planning. On Atollon, as the Rebel Alliance scrambled to prepare for the largest battle of the war, Thor stood with Mjolnir in hand and lightning beginning to gather in the sky above. Around him, the Force users of the Covenant prepared their abilities. Rebel soldiers manned defensive positions. Starfighters launched for combat space patrol. We've faced impossible odds before, Mon Mothma announced over base-wide communications. We've survived through courage, ingenuity, and the knowledge that our cause is just. Today will test us as never before, but we do not stand alone. We stand with Thor of Asgard, and together we will show the Empire that tyranny can be resisted. Thor listened to the speech and felt the weight of responsibility settle across his shoulders like a familiar cloak. These people had come to depend on him, to believe in him, to trust that his power could overcome even the Empire's might. and perhaps it could, but at what cost? How many would die in the battle to come? How long could he sustain combat against 40 capital ships? What would happen if he failed? Doubt is creeping in, Kanan observed, sensing Thor's mood through the Force. That's new for you. I'm not invincible, Thor admitted. I've faced defeats before, seen people I swore to protect die because I wasn't strong enough, or fast enough, or clever enough. I fear I'm about to fail again. And this time an entire rebel base will pay the price. Then don't fail, Ezra said simply. You're the god of thunder. Act like it. The simple faith in the young man's voice struck Thor deeply. This was what he'd given the rebellion, not just military capability, but genuine belief that victory was possible. To doubt himself now would betray that faith more certainly than any defeat in combat. You're right, Thor said, his voice strengthening. I am Thor Odinson, son of Odin, protector of 9 realms, and now this galaxy as well. The Empire sends 40 ships to crush us. Let them come. We will show them what happens when tyranny faces the storm. Lightning erupted across Atollon's sky as Thor raised Mjolnir toward the stars. Around him, Force users tapped into the light side and even carefully controlled dark side energies. Rebel soldiers checked weapons and steeled themselves for battle, and somewhere in orbit, 40 Imperial star destroyers dropped out of hyperspace to begin what the Emperor intended as the rebellion's final stand. But as Thor stood ready to defend another world in a galaxy not his own, surrounded by allies who had become friends and a cause that had become his own, he realized something profound. Whether he ever found his way back to Asgard or not, this fight mattered. These people mattered, and he would stand with them against any darkness, face any odds, endure any hardship, because that was what heroes did. The battle for Atollon was about to begin, and its outcome would determine not just the rebellion's survival, but whether the galaxy still believed that hope could triumph over despair. Thor smiled, lightning dancing around his form, Mjolnir eager in his hand. Let the Empire come. Let them bring their fleets and their weapons, and their conviction that tyranny was inevitable. The god of thunder would teach them otherwise. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, beings watched holographic transmissions of the gathering storm. The Empire had committed to crushing the rebellion decisively. Thor Odinson stood ready to defend them against impossible odds. And everyone understood that what happened next would reshape the galactic civil war's trajectory forever. The storm clouds gathered, the thunder rolled, and Thor of Asgard prepared to show the Empire what divine fury truly meant. Not just power, but power wielded for justice, for protection, for everything a warrior's strength should serve. The greatest battle was yet to come, but Thor Odinson faced it not with fear, but with determination born from knowing that some causes were worth any sacrifice. The galaxy would remember this day, the day the god of thunder stood against an empire and refused to yield.